The orc's remains lay sprawled in corrosive sludge. The ferocity once frozen in its empty sockets, long since replaced by deathly silence. The man picked up the bone blade beside him, dropped to one knee, and ran his fingers over the jagged teeth along its edge. Back in his old world, something like this would not even have been good enough to sharpen an arrowhead. Now he was forced to use it as a scalpel. He sliced open the monster's chest. A crystal core, the size of a pigeon egg, rolled into his palm, giving off a faint gray glow. Cracks spread through it like a frozen river. It was nothing more than a low-grade magic stone. He wiped the slime from its surface. With his thumb, a self-mocking smile tugged at his lips. Something this worthless had once been beneath his notice, yet now he had to stoop for every broken scrap of energy. As his fingers touched the zipper of his backpack, the ground shook with a thunderous rumble. These were not the footsteps of a single creature, but several monsters trampling through dead branches. Amid a whirlwind of dry leaves, 8 orcs burst from the trees, their bone blades sending powerful gusts through the forest. The leading orc roared and raised its weapon, bringing the blade down toward the back of the man's neck. The man dropped low and evaded the strike, leading the bone blade to smash into the spot where he had just been sanding. He flicked his finger, launching the crystal core from his palm like a bullet. It pierced the leftmost orc through the eye and blew apart its skull, spraying green brain matter across another orc's chest. The remaining 7 orcs roared and charged him with their blades raised. Elsewhere, a ponytailed girl hidden in the shadows of the forest tightly gripped her wrist guard. Her voice was as faint as a dying flame. What if he really dies? The young man beside her raised an eyebrow. Worried about him already? The bearded man frowned helplessly. Grinding his boot against the gravel, he said, if that kid really were an intruder, a squad of B-rank agents from the control center would already be here. Namsangate is a C-rank restricted zone. The Li agents can be deployed at any time. As long as he doesn't charge headfirst into a horde like an idiot, he'll survive. The tall man quickly agreed. He's right. The kid is probably hiding behind a tree, trembling while he waits for the agents to rescue him. The man they assumed was hiding behind a tree waiting to be rescued was So-Do Jun. In reality, he was staring coldly at an orc whose pupils had constricted in fear. He drove a fist straight into the orc's face. At the same moment, he slipped past a bone blade swinging at him from behind. He followed with a flying kick that sent the attacker crashing away. Moments later, the final orc collapsed to the ground. So-Do Jun picked up the bone blade again and carved the crystal cores from their bodies, but the haul was still disappointing. At that moment, a shout from a man in a suit broke the silence. 3 others quickly gathered beside him. Their leader stepped forward. We're from the Namsangate Control Center. Please show us your hero registration ID. At the mention of the Namsangate Control Center, So-Do Jun's fingers tightened around the crystal core. The leader continued, unregistered individuals are forbidden from entering a C-rank restricted zone. Under regulations, you must accompany us to the control center for questioning. A blond man pulled out a pair of handcuffs, glowing blue, his voice trembling slightly. Sir, please cooperate. He then grabbed So-Do Jun by the wrist. The key rattled in his shaking hand. If you resist, we will use force. You will be responsible for the consequences. The cold metal cuffs pressed against So-Do Jun's wrist. So-Do Jun instantly clamped onto the blond man's forearm, sending the handcuffs clattering to the ground. The other 3 immediately drew metal rods from their belts. Rows along the rods erupted with blinding white light. They were 3 level 4 binding wands. So-Do Jun sharply twisted the blond man's wrist downward, bending it at an unnatural angle and drawing a piercing scream from him. So-Do Jun stared coldly at the group. This is your final warning. Leave now if you don't want to get hurt. The next instant, blinding light from the level 4 binding wand surged toward him with a flick of his fingers. So-Do Jun knocked every wand aside with a crisp metallic clang. The suited agent followed with a sweeping kick. His boot grazed So-Do Jun's temple, and the force of it tossed his bangs into the air. So-Do Jun twisted aside and avoided the strike. At the same time, his knees slammed into the suited agent's ribs with a heavy thud. The suited agent crumpled to the ground like a discarded sack. Squad leader's pupils suddenly contracted. His tactical goggles slipped down the bridge of his nose. He stared at his subordinate, lying among the dead leaves, his throat bobbing as static crackled from the communicator on his wrist. The instant the squad leader looked away, So-Do Jun was already standing right in front of him. A lightning-fast knee strike slammed into the squad leader's abdomen. He staggered onto one knee, crushing the dry leaves beneath him. Bracing himself against the ground, the squad leader coughed violently. With strength like yours, why haven't you registered as a hero? And registering means I can sleep easy? Seo Do-jun asked, staring coldly at his trembling body. At least you can operate legally inside the gates without being hunted by agents. The squad leader raised his head, his tactical lenses reflecting Seo Do-jun's icy profile. Seo Do-jun continued. Then what about rifts? Terror instantly spread across the squad leader's face. You even know about the rifts? It turned out that this world was merging with another. Heroes could travel through gates to hunt the monsters roaming that world, while the materials harvested from their bodies were processed into a new source of energy. Gates were state-controlled passages between worlds and secured zones used to contain monsters. Unknown spatial fractures that had not yet been sealed were known as rifts. Seo Do-jun asked, so no matter which gate I enter, I'll be declared a fugitive? The squad leader shouted, the control center tracks every unregistered person who enters a gate without authorization. But rifts are far more dangerous, and the Hero Association never shows mercy to trespassers. Done wasting time. Seo Do-jun suddenly grabbed him by the face. The skin beneath his palm twitched with fear, leaving the squad leader with a single thought. This bastard is insane. Watching Seo Do-jun disappear into the distance, the squad leader collapsed to the ground and roared, you bastard. The next time I catch you, you're dead. However, Seo Do-jun was not his original name. As he walked away, his thoughts returned to the moment before he entered this world. Back then, the Demon King's collapse unleashed a tsunami of dark energy across the land. He heard the world's core release a piercing shriek as it shattered. The sound drilling straight into his eardrums, it felt as though countless needles of ice were being stirred through his brain. The last thing he saw was a black vortex tearing open above the ruins. Like the throat of a colossal beast, it swallowed him whole before his consciousness sank into darkness. Only one thought remained. Is this the death I earned after 10 years of war? He had no idea how much time had passed before a violent sensation of falling seized his limbs. His eyes snapped open. An oddly dressed man was floating before him. He tried to ask who the stranger was, but his voice only echoed inside his mind, never reaching his lips. The stranger gazed at him and slowly said, my name is Seo Do-jun. I'm the original owner of this body, but I'm about to die. If you grant me one request, I'll give you this body. The warrior from the other world refused without hesitation. Memories of fighting for 10 years, being betrayed by trusted comrades, watching his nation fall flooded his mind. Staring at Seo Do-jun, he said, my friends are dead. So is my family. People tell us to live life to the fullest, but I have nothing left now. You know what that feels like? The light in Seo Do-jun's eyes faded, only to return when he mentioned 2 names. But I don't want Grandma and Eun-young to suffer because of me. That's why I need you. As he spoke, Seo Do-jun's figure began turning transparent. He raised a hand and pointed toward the faint outline of a distant city, live in my place, and protect them. The moment he said the word protect, his body shattered like glass. From that moment on, the warrior from the other world continued living as Seo Do-jun. Now the tattooed man behind the counter looked like a vicious wolf guarding its treasure. Tapping his fingers against the counter, the tattooed man greeted him with a fake smile. Welcome. The moment Seo Do-jun opened his backpack, a pile of magic stones spilled out. Their crystalline surfaces still streaked with fresh blood. The tattooed man's pupils contracted, but a smile quickly spread across his face. Wow. That's quite a haul. Give me a moment to sort everything. Have a seat. Would you like some coffee? Seo Do-jun casually sat down on the nearby couch. After the tattooed man finished counting the stones with silver tweezers, the clicking of his abacus suddenly grew sharper. 12 low-grade stones, 16 mid-grade stones, and 5 each of the high and top grades. After a 40% commission, your total comes to 5,600,000 won. Seo Do-jun pressed down on the receipt being pushed toward him. I did all the hunting while you're only buying the stones. What exactly did you do to earn a 40% commission? The tattooed man's smile froze. The standard commission is 45%. We're only charging you 40. If you don't want to sell, take them back. No one else will offer you more. Seo Do-jun began gathering the magic stones. The tattooed man suddenly grabbed his wrist. 30,000 won for the appraisal, 10,000 for the coffee, and 300,000 for the blood-stained towel. That comes to 340,000 won. Seo Do-jun tore his hand free. I don't have any money. Do whatever you want. Mistaking him for an easy target, the tattooed man finally revealed his true intentions. You're refusing to sell them to me? This place is protected by C-rank heroes. You're finished. The shop's back door suddenly burst open. A muscular man leading the group strode inside and asked the tattooed man, what happened? Why did you call us? He then turned towards Seo Dojin. Is someone causing trouble again? The blonde thug's pupils still reflected the image of his companion dropping like a discarded sack while his throat bobbed violently against a neck covered in bulging veins. Seo Dojin grabbed the muscular leader and hurled him straight at the blonde thug, a heavy crash mixed with their screams exploding through the shop like shattered porcelain. Seo Dojin slowly approached the tattooed man. A sweep of his palm shattered the glass counter, sending golden fragments scattering like stardust. Your commission is now 1%. He looked down at the tattooed man's pale face. Let's enjoy a pleasant business relationship from now on. Not long afterward, So Do-jun placed a stack of Korean won on the table at home. Grandma and Eun-young stared at the money with shock and suspicion. Do-jun, where did all this money come from? So Do-jun gave an awkward smile and scratched his head. It's not what you think. I once lent some money to a friend who was starting a business. Grandma's eyes filled with doubt. You have a friend like that? After a brief silence, So Do-jun answered quietly. You know him. We used to play together as children back where I grew up. Grandma stared at the money in his hands and sighed. Of course, I know. Eun-young suddenly leaped to her feet, her excited voice nearly lifting the roof. Wow. We're rich. We're really rich. She fluttered around Grandma like a joyful butterfly. Even the tips of her bouncing hair seemed coated in honeyed excitement as Seo Jun watched them smile. His memories returned to the moment he first entered this world. Before he fully awakened, the original Seo Do-jun had left him one final request. Please take care of Grandma and Eun-young. Let them live in the safest home in the world. Once those words were spoken, the original Seo Do-jun disappeared completely. When the sword god from another world opened his eyes again, he had inherited Seo Do-jun's body and identity. The safest mansion in South Korea was worth a staggering 110 trillion won. It had originally been nothing more than a one-sided request from the body's former owner. However, the existence of rifts, gates, and monsters made that request far from unreasonable. Besides, the power system of this world seemed as fragile as a cicada's wing to Seo Doja. A cold smile crept across his lips. As the sword god, the battles of this world looked like children playing pretend, even though he had yet to recover 1% of his original power. So, Dojin, are you in there? A violent pounding on the door interrupted his thoughts. Seo Dojin stood and reassured them. Stay here. I'll go see what they want. Two thugs stood outside with their arms crossed. The brown-haired man looked Seo Do-jun up and down, the cigarette between his lips glowing as he spoke. He sneered. So Do-jun, people are supposed to repay their debts. Right? The blonde thug raised a bony finger and gestured dramatically. 48 million won isn't a small amount. So Do-jun stared at them as his temples throbbed. A 5 million won hospital bill had grown nearly tenfold under the loan shark's crushing interest. I've already paid 9 million. His voice was cold as ice, and the instant the words left his mouth, his fist shot forward. The brown-haired thug hit the ground before he could even react. The blonde thug stumbled backward in terror, producing nothing but a broken whimper. He asked with a trembling voice, Are you really Seo Dojin? Seo Dojin advanced on him one step at a time. Go tell your boss. Staring into the thug's trembling eyes, he slowly added, I'll be paying him a personal visit very soon. Not long afterward, So Do-jun took Eun-young to a downtown shopping mall. Clutching a bunny plushie, Eun-young looked up at him with stars in her eyes. Can I really buy it? Can I have this new doll? So Do-jun gently rubbed her head, a smile rising to his lips. Of course, you can have anything you want. A tiny ripple spread through the emotional emptiness that had long existed inside him. The body's original owner had always treasured Eun-young, his younger half-sister. Since Seo Do-jun had inherited that body, he would protect that bond in the original owner's place. After shopping, the siblings headed toward a restaurant for a meal. A sharp voice suddenly cut through the air. Wait. Seo Do-jun, is that really you? Seo Do-jun turned and saw a heavy-set woman approaching with two bald bodyguards. Her eyes were filled with contempt. What happened to you? You're dressed like some worthless bum. And who's the brat beside you? Don't tell me you made the same mistake as your mother and had a child out of wedlock. Seo Dojin's pupils contracted as his killing intent surged like a black tide. The surrounding air seemed to freeze as though a violet storm were about to erupt. Not long afterward, Seo Dojin arrived alone at a rift entrance. A B-rank hero registration card glowing coldly in his palm, he pressed the card against the security scanner, causing blue streams of data to illuminate the alloy surface. Bree's steel barrier slowly shifted apart like the jaws of a colossal beast. A mechanical announcement sounded above the grinding gears. Hero registration card confirmed. Your current rank is below the recommended level. Danger warning. Please proceed with caution. Seo Dojin cursed under his breath. That damn gang boss. Couldn't he have gotten me a registration card one rank higher? He stepped over a warning light, flashing the word danger. A metal plaque at the tunnel entrance reflected his image and displayed the details. Bamsum Gate, B-rank rift, tunnel terrain, recommended combat level of an A-rank hero, and a 2-person entry limit. A cold smile tugged at Seo Dojin's lips. This so-called B-rank rift would have been no more than a D-rank labyrinth in his old world. Even so, clearing it alone was considered nearly impossible, and the narrow tunnel forced intruders to advance along a single path. A foul wind suddenly swept through the darkness. A 30-foot-tall, golden-headed green python erupted from the ground like an emerald pillar. Corrosive slime dripping from its flickering tongue, Seo Dojin flexed the hooked metal claws on his hands and closed in on the serpent amid a harsh metallic scrape. Come on. The serpent opened its massive jaws and lunged at him with dagger-like fangs. Seo Dojin abruptly changed direction and struck the vital point below its head, his claws tearing through the hard scales with a dull ripping sound. A blood-red magic stone dropped between his fingers, giving off an eerie glow. The giant serpent released a dying roar as dark green blood sprayed like a fountain. This monster was known as a black venom assassin serpent, and the slime coating its body could paralyze a person's nerves within seconds. Seo Dojin stepped on the serpent's corpse and launched himself toward the second golden-headed python. His metal claws passed through its body like a knife through butter, splitting the serpent in two. Seo Dojin had expected the chemical-resistant gloves he bought for 300,000 won to fall apart, but they were far more durable than he imagined. He glanced at the venom, covering the undamaged gloves, and nodded with satisfaction. As he considered his next move, the tunnel behind him began shaking violently. Several equally massive pythons squeezed through the cracks, their venomous fangs gleaming like the sides of death. Mana surged through Seo Dojin's veins. Every swing of his metal claws sent dark green blood mist spraying through the tunnel. Before long, the final giant serpent crashed to the ground. Seo Dojin began searching through the bodies for magic stones, only to pause. A black, venom assassin serpent had only a 3% chance of producing a magic stone. At that rate, he would have to slaughter more than 100 of them to gather a worthwhile haul. The deeper Seo Dojin traveled into the tunnel, the denser the piles of human bones became. Black poison drifted among the white bones like ghostly flames. Then a pair of enormous emerald eyes opened in the darkness ahead. The serpent was 3 times larger than the others. Its massive body coiled around the ceiling, while venom leaking between its scales ate deep pools into the rock. Looked up at the monster. I finally found the boss. The moment he removed his backpack, the giant serpent whipped its tail toward him. Rocks exploded in every direction. As Seo Dojin leaped along the cavern wall, he drove a heavy punch into the serpent's skull, but it left only a shallow dent. The serpent immediately swept its tail toward him again. Seo Dojin failed to evade in time and was slammed into a hollow in the rock wall. With his ears still ringing, he realized that his attacks were barely doing any damage. The golden serpent opened its jaws, exposing venom-coated fangs. Seo Dojin launched himself upward and narrowly avoided the attack. He twisted around and drove his palm into its enormous body, but only a few scales cracked. The creature's defenses were far stronger than expected. Even his fists, strengthened to a rank level, could barely break its scales. At his full strength, however, armor like this would have meant nothing. Seo Dojin continued evading the serpent while rapidly searching for a way to kill it. His foot suddenly struck something buried beneath the rubble. Looking down, he discovered a badly worn sword. You may be falling apart, but you should still be enough to deal with this thing. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, familiar energy flowed through his arm. No matter how old a sword became, its true power ultimately depended on the person wielding it. Seo Dojin gently brushed the blade. Let me borrow you for a while. He raised the battered sword. Power erupted beneath his feet, instantly shattering the rock below. So Dojin launched himself into the air. You should feel honored. I'll personally destroy you. The moment the serpent opened its jaws, he drove the sword to the roof of its mouth. As the blade pierced its skull, the worn sword shattered. So Jun looked at the broken hilt remaining in his hand. I guess that was still asking a little too much. With the serpent no longer able to resist, he tore one of its golden fangs from its mouth. So Jun weighed the blood-stained fang in his hand. It's a little short, but once it's refined, it should make a decent dagger. After storing the fang, he picked up his backpack and headed toward the rift's exit. He had expected to clear the B-rank rift quickly, yet it had taken far longer than anticipated. Meanwhile, inside the magic stone shop, the young clerk looked at the backpack brought in by another hero. Looks like you found quite a few high-quality magic stones. The clerk lowered his gaze and moved the beads of his abacus, discreetly studying the man from the corner of his eye. Under our rules, we charge a 40% commission. The man slowly raised his head, a bitter smile crossing his rugged face. That's brutal. I'm just an ordinary hero. Can't you cut me a little slack? The clerk continued counting the cash. The gate center may charge only a fixed 5% commission, but every transaction there is officially recorded. Once there's a record, you also have to pay heavy taxes. Here, you get your money without any paperwork. Understand? The man stared at the bruises on the clerk's face. What happened to you? Don't ask. The clerk lowered his voice. Some lunatic broke through our defenses and did this to me. Even the C-rank heroes couldn't stop him. I've always said rank means nothing. Real combat experience is what matters. The man tapped the hero license resting on the counter. A security guard who just got his license can't compare to a hero who risks his life hunting monsters. Ranks are just numbers invented for bureaucrats. The clerk waved him off impatiently. All right. The transaction is finished. Get out of here. The man paused as he crossed the doorway and glanced back with a faint smile. We've known each other for a while. If you ever need help, give me a call. With that, he brushed past Seo Jun, who was entering the shop. The moment the clerk saw Seo Jun, he shot to his feet. Pointing at him, the clerk roared, "That's the bastard who did this to me." The departing hero turned back and slowly examined Su Dojin as though trying to see straight through him. His presence became threatening. So you're the one who tore this place apart. You're a hero, yet you attacked a civilian. Don't you know heroes aren't supposed to use violence against ordinary people? Hope rose inside the clerk. The man confronting Seo Dojin was a veteran hero with 7 years of hunting experience. Seo Dojin lowered his gaze and looked at the man with eyes as cold as sharpened blades. Are you planning to avenge him? A chill ran through the veteran hero. The instincts he had developed over years of hunting warned him that something deadly was standing before him. He quickly raised both hands. Sorry, but my wife is about to give birth. I need to get home. The clerk's face instantly turned pale. As panic took hold of him, a backpack stuffed with magic stones slammed into his arms. The moment he saw what was inside, his eyes widened. Wait. This quality. These are all high-grade magic stones. The clerk stood frozen, staring at the high-grade magic stones, glowing strangely in his hands. It took him several moments to recover. He frantically grabbed a calculator and checked the amount, his throat bobbing repeatedly. He stared at the stones, his voice trembling. These are worth 150 million won. Seo Dojin folded his arms and considered the amount. I hunted all day, and this is only worth 150 million? The clerk hurriedly stepped forward and raised his hands. Wait. We still need to deduct our commission. His voice died under Seo Dojin's icy stare. He froze in place, every argument turning into a dry swallow as cold sweat ran down his jaw. Seo Dojin sighed and withdrew his oppressive presence. Right. There's also the 1% commission. The clerk swallowed his anger and breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Transactions exceeding 100 million won require approval from upper management. He immediately called the owner. A deep voice began questioning him over the phone, and the clerk stammered through the details while repeatedly glancing at Seo Jun's cold expression. As the person on the other end continued demanding more information, Seo Jun lost his patience and snatched away the phone. He spoke coldly into it. You heard everything, right? Tell him to pay me now. The person on the phone continued rambling. So Seo Jun casually tossed it away. The phone shot past the clerk's head and embedded itself in the wall, shattering on impact. The clerk's pupils contracted. His legs nearly gave out beneath him as he stammered. Okay. Seo Do-jin picked up the bulging bag of cash. As he opened the door, he glanced back and said, "Next time, think carefully about the consequences before you act." Once, So Do-jun disappeared around the corner, the clerk collapsed into his chair like a puppet with severed strings. Cold sweat soaked his back as a suppressed whimper escaped his throat. 10 minutes later, the shop door burst open with a powerful gust of wind. A muscular man stormed inside. "Why didn't you answer your phone? What was that call about?" The clerk's lips trembled. "Boss, I quit. I can't do this job anymore." The muscular owner stared at the shattered phone embedded in the wall. He then looked at the clerk's paper-white face, pulling out another phone. He called a mysterious number. After a brief conversation, he hung up with a dark expression. "Looks like I'll need someone to deal with this problem." Moments later, the bell above the shop door rang. A purple-haired woman in a white robe entered, her long hair sweeping sharply behind her shoulders. The clerk cried out in shock, "For star hero, Ju-yun. Why did you come here personally?" Yoon Ju-yun answered calmly. "My uncle said a hero has been forcing this shop to purchase his magic stones. Apparently, the man has been causing him quite a headache." Her thin heels clicked against the floor as she approached the leather couch. Yoon Ju-yun elegantly crossed her legs and casually rested her cheek against one hand. An overwhelming pressure instantly filled the shop. "Could you explain exactly what happened?" Meanwhile, Seo Do-jin calculated the day's earnings. 12 straight hours of intense hunting had earned him only a little over 100 million won. In his current situation, that amount was barely enough to make a difference. To establish himself in this world, he needed to become strong enough to clear an S-rank gate alone as quickly as possible. His most urgent task was finding a way to recover his power faster. Unlike his former world, however, the mana in this world's atmosphere was incredibly thin. Even if So Do-jin accumulated mana like this every day, it would take at least 3 years and possibly much longer. High-end equipment might accelerate his recovery, but premium gear in this world was unbelievably expensive. Even worthless equipment could cost hundreds of millions of won. The ground suddenly began trembling in a strange rhythm while the entire house groaned under the pressure. So Do-jin instinctively pulled Union into his arms. "Grandma, get under the table." Before he finished speaking, the alloy floor beneath them began surging like boiling water. A pitch-black fracture tore open across the sky, swallowing every trace of light around it. Purple lightning raged inside the rift. Like the interlocking fangs of a colossal beast, Grandma pulled Goon-young tightly against her trembling body, while So Do-jun raced toward the crimson light pouring from the rift. The energy felt exactly like the calamity that had destroyed his previous world. At the same time, alarms tore through the Seoul Hero Association headquarters. The staff on duty stared at the holographic screen, their throats bobbing with tension. S-rank energy detected. The rift has been provisionally classified as special grade. The association's executives quickly gathered around the distorted spatial image. The chairman's expression turned dark. "Contact the White Lion Guild immediately. Lock down the surrounding streets and evacuate every civilian. No civilians can be allowed near that area. Continue reporting the live readings." Another technician spoke with a trembling voice. "The instability inside the rift has exceeded the critical threshold. We've also detected an unregistered awakener entering without authorization." The vice chairman slammed his palm against the table. "What kind of idiot enters a rift without hero certification? If that person dies inside, the entire rift will spiral out of control." Meanwhile, inside another office, a woman slammed a file onto her desk. She cursed angrily that useless Kong Chul-woo should have dealt with So Do-jun a long time ago. The woman issued another order. "Manager Lee, contact Kong Chul-woo immediately. If he still can't eliminate that little bastard, he can pay 10 times the penalty for breaching our contract. That may no longer be necessary." The bald man beside her wiped the sweat from his forehead. The new rift in Mappo appeared directly above So Do-jun's home. "We've confirmed that he entered it alone." Surprise flashed through the woman's eyes before a cold smile spread across her face. "It appears we'll never have to see that nuisance again. All we need to do now is closely monitor the situation." The instant Seo Do-jun entered the rift, a powerful light forced his eyes shut. When the glare faded, the sight before him left him frozen. He found himself standing in a forest that felt both familiar and foreign, and the realization was almost impossible to believe. This was unmistakably Patagua Forest. Every twisted ancient tree, every fern swaying in the wind, and even the storm clouds floating above the distant mountains perfectly matched his memories. The moment Seo Do-jin stepped onto the familiar path, his heart began pounding faster. He knew the legendary world tree had to be waiting ahead, an ancient spirit tree that carried the purest flow of mana in existence. In his previous world, the world tree had fallen during a devastating fire. Its destruction threw the world's mana into chaos and eventually caused the entire world to decline. Yet now, Seo Do-jin saw the world tree standing tall and firmly rooted in the depths of the forest. By some miracle, it had escaped the disaster that should have destroyed everything. If Seo Do-jin could approach the world tree, he might truly be able to recover the immense power he once possessed. He immediately sat cross-legged before the world tree and began absorbing the mana flowing around it. One day became 2, then 3, as time quietly passed with every breath of the world tree. Seo Do-jin forgot all hunger and thirst, completely immersing himself in the rhythm connecting him to the Incha tree. 10 full days passed. Night descended, and silver moonlight climbed through the branches. Several humanoid figures wrapped in deep blue flames crept toward the world tree. They were monsters known as brunkas. In his previous life, these were the monsters responsible for burning down the world tree. Seo Do-jin slowly opened his eyes. A water element sword would be useful right now, but it doesn't matter. I'll crush every last one of you myself. Mana erupted from his body and surged toward his palm like a powerful tide. The concentrated mana transformed into an invisible force that exploded toward the monsters. One brunka instantly collapsed, while the others froze under the crushing pressure radiating from Seo Do-jin. None of them dared take another step. Seo Do-jin could barely remember the last time he had spent mana this freely. Several brunkas suddenly opened their fanged mouths. Deep blue flames shot toward Seo Do-jin like poisoned blades. The flames vanished the instant they touched the mana barrier surrounding him. Seo Do-jin had confirmed that the world tree was safe for now. But first, he needed to eliminate every piece of filth standing before him. Before the monsters could finish roaring, Seo Do-jin vanished. A moment later, he appeared directly before them and slammed his palms together. The powerful shock wave created by the collision instantly shattered the heads of 2 brunkas. Their bodies rapidly dissolved as though consumed by flames. A crimson magic stone dropped into the ashes. Seo Do-jin smiled fatally. After all the attention I've given you, the least you can do is leave me a gift. With those words, he charged into the horde alone without the slightest trace of fear. If I remember correctly, your flames are called Eternal Flame. Right? The monsters' bodies ignited and vanished one after another, but their chance of producing magic stones seemed far lower than Seo Do-jin remembered. Standing before the world tree, Seo Do-jin looked over the gifts scattered among the remains and smiled coldly. Let's see how many magic stones you can produce. His fingers suddenly touched something strangely warm. Seo Do-jin picked up a flickering golden light from the ashes and immediately recognized it as an eternal ember. His expression tightened. I can't believe I made such a basic mistake again. The golden light shattered inside his palm, releasing flames that spread between his fingers before gathering in his hand. Absorbing more mana from the world tree would naturally be the best outcome for Seo Do-jin. Unfortunately, his current body could not withstand any more energy. His only option was to absorb the eternal ember. Doing so would convert the mana inside him into fire attribute mana. In the past, Seo Do-jin would never have needed an eternal ember to strengthen himself. In his current condition, however, absorbing a single eternal ember would take only 10 minutes. He needed to absorb as many of them as possible. Eternal Flame would become his new weapon in this world. The rift in the sky continued expanding like a living creature, its black edges slowly devouring everything around it. Field reporters had already aimed their cameras at the massive fracture tearing across the sky. Damn it. This is all because of that reckless lunatic. Ben Sungkook cursed. His brow was tightly furrowed, and irritation covered his face. Kim Hyun-woo tried to calm him down. Maybe he was only trying to save his family. His family is nothing but an excuse for his selfishness. The muscular Bon Sang-guk sneered. I heard he awakened a long time ago, yet he ignored everyone else and charged straight into the rift. If he dies inside, the entire rift will go berserk. Who's going to take responsibility for that? Kim Hyun-woo answered grimly. The rifts that appeared around the world were brought under control almost immediately. We're the only ones still dealing with ours. Ban Sung-guk roared. And it's all because of that useless bastard. He'd better pray he dies in there. Because if he comes out alive, I'll tear him apart myself. 28 days had passed since the rift appeared. The association had already declared everything within 6 miles a restricted zone. Fearing the first intruder's death would trigger a full outbreak and endanger innocent civilians, the news broadcast abruptly went silent. Huang Chang-sip slowly switched off the screen before him. Resting his cheek against one hand, he casually asked, "That man was So Dojin, right?" His trusted assistant, Kim Eun-guk, immediately bowed. "Yes, boss. Our men confirmed it. There's no doubt it was So Dojin." A cold smile tugged at Huang Chang-sip's lips. "What are the odds that kid comes out alive?" Kim Eun-guk spread his hands. "If he's an ordinary person, there's no point discussing odds. Forget 1%. His chances are probably below 0.1%. An ordinary person?" Huang Cheon-sok burst into laughter. "How ridiculous. Has the Hero Association's intelligence really fallen that far behind?" He paused, his eyes sharpening like blades. "What if Seo Do-jun is an awakener?" Kim Eun-guk calmly answered. "If he's an awakener, everything depends on his rank. Honestly, it's difficult to judge right now." Kwang Chum-seop leaned back in his chair. "Anything can happen. Besides, being good at fighting and surviving in a hunting ground are two completely different things." Kim Eun-guk asked, "Then what are you planning to do?" "Boss," a sinister smile spread across Huang Cheon-seop's face. "Keep a close watch on his family if he dies inside that rift. Sell the organs of the old woman and the girl. If he returns alive, tell him we've been taking care of his family and use it to earn his favor." Meanwhile, dense mana surged around the world tree like an endless tide. Golden flames burned around So Do-jun as he slowly opened his eyes. How long has it been? He had absorbed hundreds of eternal embers, allowing him to wield all kinds of fire magic with ease. His resistance to fire had also risen dramatically, while his control over the element had reached an astonishing level. It even surpassed the fire control he had possessed in his previous life as the sword god. Seo Do-jun gently touched the world tree's rough bark. "You helped me more than I can ever repay, both in the past and now. Thank you, world tree." The storage bag, woven from vines, was already filled with high-grade magic stones. Seo Do-jun took one final look at the towering ancient tree. He then turned away with determination. "Perhaps we'll never meet again. But if we ever reunite and you're in danger, I'll protect you no matter the cost." Moonlight fell like silver sand across the rift's exit. Seo Do-jun slowly stepped out. He looked around. There isn't even a road sign within a mile. This entire area must have been locked down. His eyes narrowed. Something about the energy coming from that direction feels wrong. Concealed by the shadows of nearby buildings, he spotted two men wearing the same uniforms as the agents from the previous gate incident. Being discovered would only create more trouble. Golden fire gathered in Seo Do-jun's palm. He swung his arm and hurled it into the air. The fireballs streaked across the night sky like a meteor and flew toward a distant building. A thunderous explosion erupted, and towering flames illuminated the darkness. One of the agents cried out, "What was that? Something's on fire." Both men were drawn toward the disturbance and raced toward the flames. Seo Do-jun remained in the shadows, watching the fire burn in the distance. He nodded with satisfaction. The power and accuracy aren't bad. A familiar figure surfaced in his memories. Seo Do-jun quietly murmured, "I wonder if these flames I created would impress even you. After all, you were once the strongest fire mage on the continent." As Kim Hyun-woo ran, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. He spun toward the rift. "Wait." Ban Sung-guk frowned. "What is it?" Kim Hyun-woo's pupils contracted. "The rift, it's disappearing." Their expressions changed, and they immediately raced back toward the rift. During the rift's final moment, So Do-jun seemed to sense something from the distance. He glanced back with a steady gaze and thought, even the strongest sword god can apparently show mercy. Breaking news. The new special grade rift in Mopro quietly disappeared this morning. The first person confirmed to have entered was a young man, and the Hero Association is making every effort to locate him. Reports from the restricted zone also state that an unexplained fire broke out in a nearby junkyard at the exact moment the rift disappeared. A man watching the broadcast on a high-rise screen commented, "That guy probably died inside." The person beside him sneered, "He deserved it. Everyone knows you stay as far away as possible when a rift appears. Even children know that. If the rift hadn't closed, all of Seoul could have become a battlefield." Seo Do-jun quietly listened to their conversation. "If the rift is truly gone, I may never see the world tree again. Still, this may be the best possible outcome." He raised his eyes, knowing there were still people in this world he had to protect. Before long, the old rundown house came into view. Two thugs stood smoking in the hallway. The man in yellow sat on the floor. That bastard is probably dead, but the old woman and the girl won't escape. The other thug agreed. Of course not. They clearly don't know who our boss is. We'll squeeze 10 times the value out of them. The man in yellow raised his cigarette again and gave a filthy smile. That little girl might grow into quite a beauty someday. At that moment, a cold voice abruptly interrupted the two thugs. Seo Dojin approached with chilling killing intent. Hey, where's your boss? Meanwhile, Hwang Chung-sip had just stepped out of a luxury car. He hummed a playful tune while slowly combing back his hair. He smiled in satisfaction. That bastard is dead. I can finally sleep peacefully. Hwang Chung-suk turned toward his assistant. What's on my schedule today? Kim Un-guk checked his notebook. There's a luncheon this afternoon, but nothing scheduled for tonight. Then contact Mrs. Kong and tell her I'll be visiting tonight. Have the new girls dress properly. Yes. Boss, Kim Un-guk followed Hwang Chang-sip toward the office. A figure suddenly plummeted from the building above them. Blood exploded across the ground before Hwang Chang-sip. His legs gave out, and he collapsed while staring in terror at the approaching Seo Dojin. So Dojin issued a cold command, crawl over here like a dog. Hwang Chang-sip trembled violently as sweat poured down his forehead. So Dojin asked again, didn't you hear me? Hwang Chang-sip was already terrified out of his mind. Trash like you doesn't deserve to be treated as human. Crawl over here like a dog. Hwang Chang-sip abandoned all dignity. He barked like a dog while crawling towards Seo Dojin. Seo Dojin looked down at him. Louder. When you plotted to stab others in the back, you should have known someone would eventually do the same to you. Tell me, what should I do with a filthy rat like you? Hwang Chang-sip dropped to his knees and begged. Please spare me. I swear I'll serve you as faithfully as a dog. Shut up, you piece of trash. Seo Dojin kicked him under the chin. Hwang Chang-sip collapsed in agony. Seo Dojin turned toward Kim Un-guk. Hey, you useless four eyes. You're the boss now. I assume you won't go around biting people like he did. A troubled expression spread across Kim Un-guk's face. But the boss has many powerful connections. If I suddenly replace him, those people may not accept it. Sweat ran down Kim Un-guk's face. Please spare him this once. Just this once. Seo Dojin smiled coldly. Is it throwing people into the ocean to feed the fish what your organization does best? If you refuse, I can throw you into a gate and feed you to the monsters instead. Everyone present turned pale with terror. Hwang Chang-sip desperately slammed his forehead against the ground. Please, I swear I'll become your most loyal dog. Listening to their desperate pleas, Seo Dojin felt himself waver. Damn it. Is my heart really growing soft? Fine. Seo Dojin slowly extended his hand toward Hwang Chang-sip. Hwang Chang-sip breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly accepted the handshake. He continued making promises. I'll take care of everything you ask. The next instant, his pupils suddenly contracted. Golden flames erupted from their joint hands. Seo Dojin watched Hwang Chang-sip scream in agony. Remember, this is your final chance. The golden flame slowly faded. Hwang Chang-sip's charred hand crumbled into ash. He clutched the scorched stump and screamed in pain. Before leaving, Seo Dojin glanced back. If a single wound appears on either member of my family, every one of you will die in endless agony. Protect them until your final breath. Meanwhile, the official conclusion regarding the special grade rift had already been finalized. The rift and its first intruder had disappeared together. So the Hero Association and every major news outlet had officially listed Seo Dojin as dead. Seo Dojin scrolled through the news alerts on his phone. He thought, telling people I returned alive would only create more trouble. Hwang Chang-sip would soon arrange a house for them, allowing the family to move into a new home. Lee Nyong happily ate her hamburger, unable to contain her excitement. Are we really moving, big brother? Seo Dojin answered, yes. Once you move, you'll be able to attend kindergarten like the other children. Instead of becoming excited, Eun-young's expression immediately fell. Seo Dojin was surprised. What's wrong? Don't you want to attend kindergarten? Eun-young answered sadly. They'll make fun of me because I don't have a mom or dad. Seo Dojin's heart ached. How did I fail to consider that? You don't have to go if you don't want to. There's no reason to meet children like that. You can start elementary school next year. Eun-young immediately smiled. Really? I don't have to go to kindergarten? Seo Dojin agreed, but privately considered enrolling her in an elite private school where no one would dare look down on her. His thoughts returned to the hallway inside Hwang Chung-seop's company building. Soju John had coldly confronted Kim Eun-guk. You put grandma and a child in a hotel? Do you have no common sense? Kim Eun-guk broke into a cold sweat and explained that the hotel belonged to the company and had excellent security. But Soju Jun cut him off before he could finish. When Soju Jun entered the hotel room, Eun-young looked at him with delight, and Grandma quickly approached as well. Grandma tightly held Soju Jun's hand. I'm so glad you came back alive. As he watched the heartwarming scene, Soju Jun realized he could no longer remember the last time he had experienced such warmth. He quietly answered, yes. I came back alive. Eun-young could not resist asking, are you a hero too, big brother? Soju Jun asked in return. Do you want your brother to be a hero? Her answer was nothing like he expected. No. I don't want you to be a hero, Moon-young explained seriously. Heroes have to fight scary monsters, and I don't want a monster to eat you. In his previous life, Seo Dojin had always fought alone with no one he could ever rely on. He had forgotten the meaning of the word family long ago. Meanwhile, the atmosphere inside the Korean Hero Association headquarters had become unusually tense. Na Tae-won, founder of the Korean Hero Association and chairman of the World Hero Alliance, asked in a deep voice, why haven't we found any useful information? The female assistant beside him answered with a troubled expression. Our search hasn't uncovered any relevant clues. Na Tae-won looked out the window with displeasure. If a rift can disappear without warning, then it may also return without warning. The assistant could not help complaining. It almost would have been better if the rift had gone out of control. At least then, we could monitor its movements. Watch your words. Na Tae-won turned toward her, instantly filling the room with overwhelming pressure. Do you understand what you just said? The assistant quickly lowered her head and apologized, deeply regretting her careless remark. Na Tae-won ranked among the 100 strongest heroes in the world. It was said that if he wished, he could easily become either the president of South Korea or the head of a massive conglomerate. However, he had no interest in wealth or political power. His attention remained focused on protecting civilians and controlling the rifts. Na Tae-won issued an order, take as much time as necessary, but uncover the truth. The assistant nodded. Understood. The residents near the rift have agreed to sell their homes. Good. Increase the purchase price so they aren't treated unfairly, and make sure the injured residents receive proper compensation. As he spoke, Na Tae-won studied every marker on the information map. Rifts appeared in several other countries at the same time. I can't shake the feeling that something larger is happening. The assistant looked confused. Haven't the rifts in Country M and Country Z already entered the containment stage? Na Tae-won answered. Yes. The problem is Country Y. All of its strongest heroes were already deployed to other rifts. At that moment, a bright red warning suddenly flashed across the information screen. Na Tae-won stared at it in disbelief. That's impossible. An emergency announcement from the World Hero Alliance appeared on the screen. The rift in Britain has gone completely out of control. 2 hours earlier, Seo Dojin had been walking through the city toward the magic stone shop he previously visited. This time, he was carrying every valuable item he had collected. Near the World Tree, the shop door opened with a clear jingle from the bell above it. The young clerk behind the counter prepared to welcome the customer. The moment he recognized Seo Dojin, terror spread across his face. The clerk quickly looked toward the man reading a newspaper nearby and silently begged him for help. The man calmly lowered the newspaper. He stared coldly at Seo Dojin. So you're the brat who forced my shop to buy your stones while I was away? Seo Dojin placed his backpack on the floor. I have a large number of magic stones to sell today. I was hoping to deal with someone who actually has the authority to make decisions. The man glanced at the backpack and immediately rejected the transaction. Assuming it contained another pile of unprocessed, low-grade stones, Seo looked at him. Are you sure you don't want to see what's inside? The man waved dismissively. You still don't understand the situation. Charging only 1% would put us out of business. Seo Dojin sighed. You'll regret that. The man frowned. Even the gate center charges a 5% commission. How could we possibly accept only 1%? He turned away. Don't come back here again. Take your bag and get out. Seo Dojin remained unconcerned and lightly kicked open the backpack. Dozens of high-grade magic stones rolled across the floor. A brilliant flash of blue among them instantly captured both men's attention. The blonde clerk and the older man stared in disbelief. That's impossible. How does he have a legendary hero crystal? Seo Dojin folded his arms. If you don't want them, then forget it. Hero crystals became famous after a notorious Mexican drug lord accidentally broke down a special magic stone while manufacturing narcotics. The released power caused the drug lord to awaken, turning hero crystals into some of the most valuable objects in the world. Both men remained frozen. Unable to take their eyes off the hero crystal, Seo Dojin ordered them to put the stones back in his bag and turned to leave. The man's attitude instantly changed. Please wait, valued customer. Have a seat. We can discuss the terms. The blonde clerk carefully began cleaning the magic stones and crystal cores. Seo Dojin drank the cold beverage they provided while listening to the man nervously explain the hero crystal's value. The man cautiously asked, would a 5% commission be acceptable? Seo Dojin immediately stood and prepared to leave. The man desperately continued lowering the commission to save the massive transaction. In the end, Seo Dojin agreed to pay the previously established 1% commission. He checked the payment notification on his phone. At his current earning rate, the mansion worth 110 trillion won no longer seemed completely out of reach. His greatest problem was obtaining more high-grade magic stones. Exploring government-controlled gates alone would never be enough. If Seo Dojin could freely travel through rifts, he could recover his strength much faster. At that moment, every phone inside the shop received an emergency alert. Seo Dojin glanced at the notification. A foreign rift has gone out of control. He silently studied the emergency announcement for a long moment. Only one thought entered his mind. This world's ability to respond to disasters is incredibly weak. In his previous life he would have done everything possible to stop a rift no matter where it appeared. In this life, however, Seo Dojin intended to live only for himself and the family he had sworn to protect. Not long afterward, steaks sizzled on the grill as a rich smoky aroma filled the air. Eun-young was already staring at the food with her mouth watering. Grandma continued studying the prices on the menu, too hesitant to order anything. Seo Dojin told her not to worry and assured her that he had already accumulated a considerable fortune. Beside them, Eun-young eagerly placed a piece of grilled meat into her mouth. Her eyes instantly filled with delight and satisfaction. The family sat together around the grill, filling the restaurant with laughter. At that moment, an eye-catching figure moved through the crowded restaurant and headed straight towards Seo Dojin. She stopped directly behind him. Seo Dojin. The sound of his name immediately caught his attention. The woman looked serious. Could I speak with you in private? Before she could finish, Seo Dojin interrupted her. Can't you see I'm having dinner with my family? Whatever you want can wait until I'm finished. The woman fell silent and thought, I'm Yoon Ju-yeon. When has any man ever treated me this way? Despite her disbelief, she agreed to wait. Yoon Ju-yeon quietly sat alone in the restaurant's waiting area. The surrounding customers began whispering, isn't that Yoon Ju-yeon? It has to be. She's an S-rank hero and a world-famous celebrity. Curious eyes turned toward her as everyone wondered who could possibly make Yoon Ju-yeon sit there and wait. Meanwhile, Yoon Ju-yeon reviewed what she knew about Seo Dojin. 2 months earlier, he had survived his first trip through a gate. Based on the available evidence, he had likely awakened during that incident. However, the authorities had officially declared him dead after the recent lizard hunt incident. What concerned Yoon Ju-yeon most was that Seo Dojin could make an S-rank hero like her nervous with nothing more than a glance. Could someone who had awakened only 2 months ago truly reach S-rank? Seo Dojin had to possess some kind of extraordinary ability. Before long, the restaurant's wooden door swung open. Eun-young walked outside with a delighted smile. Thanks for the meal. Seo Dojin turned toward Yoon Ju-yeon in the waiting area. However, someone suddenly stepped in front of him. Seo Dojin's eyes instantly sharpened. The man was Kong Chul-woo. He arrogantly asked, am I seeing things? How did you make it out of that gate alive? I thought you were just a bug I could crush under my shoe. It turns out you're as hard to kill as a cockroach. Yoon Ju-yeon also looked surprised when she recognized Kong Chul-woo. Seo Dojin completely ignored him and looked directly at Yoon Ju-yeon. Didn't you say you wanted to speak with me? Only then did Kong Chul-woo turn toward Yoon Ju-yeon. What's going on here? Seo Dojin spoke to her. Whatever you need, can wait. Take care of my family and get them home safely. I still have a debt to settle with this man outside the restaurant. Yoon Ju-yeon personally helped Eun-young and Grandma into a car. Seo Do-jun remained at the entrance until he confirmed they had safely left. Once his family was gone, his final concern disappeared. So Do-jin casually waved one hand and Kong Chul-woo's face instantly swelled. Kong Chul-woo erupted in fury. "You damn bug." A restaurant employee heard the commotion and hurried over to intervene. Kong Chul-woo slapped the employee to the floor. He roared at everyone around him. "All of you, get out." Kong Chul-woo glared at Seo Do-jun. "Are you trying to get yourself killed, you little bastard?" Before he finished speaking, Seo Do-jun thrust his palm forward like a sword. Terrifying power erupted in a single instant. Kong Chul-woo clutched his swollen face and collapsed to his knees. Seo Do-jun slowly clenched his fist as chilling killing intent filled the restaurant. "You were the one who threw me into a gate and left me to die. I believe we still have plenty to discuss." Realizing there was no point hiding the truth, Kong Chul-woo sneered. "You little bastard. Even your own father abandoned you." "That's right. Your stepmother ordered me to kill you." Seo Do-jun showed no anger. He calmly pulled out his phone and started recording. He pointed the phone toward Kong Chul-woo. "Why don't you say that again?" Kong Chul-woo clenched his sharp teeth as scorching breath poured from his mouth. Flames began burning around his fists. He roared, "Don't play games with me." "Yes. That bitch you call a stepmother ordered me to kill you. A bug like you deserves to be crushed right here." Kong Chul-woo swung his fist, sending scorching flames towards Seo Do-jin. Seo Do-jin calmly raised one hand. Just as he had blocked the Bronco's fire, he stopped the attack with a mana barrier and forced Kong Chul-woo backward. Kong Chul-woo froze in disbelief when his flaming fist was effortlessly deflected. Before he could react, powerful mana compressed inside Seo Do-jun's palm and roared like a violent gale. The force blasted Kong Chul-woo across the restaurant. The instant he hit the ground, Seo Do-jun leaped after him like a black panther. The violent fight left the restaurant employee trembling as he pulled out his phone to call the authorities. Before the call connected, Yoon Ju-yeon took the phone and smiled. "Don't worry. I'll handle everything here." Although the restaurant employee still felt uneasy, he sincerely thanked Yoon Ju-yeon. Inside the restaurant, Kong Chul-woo continued screaming as Seo Do-jun struck him again and again with alternating punches and palm strikes. Yoon Ju-yeon watched in astonishment. Kong Chul-woo was also a B-rank hero, yet he was completely helpless against Seo Do-jun. She wondered, is he a rank or higher? But could even an A rank overwhelm a B rank this completely? Yoon Ju-yeon quickly approached them. "Mr. Seo, please stop. If this continues, he'll die." Seo Do-jun glanced at her and finally stopped, slowly shaking out his hand. After the relentless beating, Yoon Ju-yeon asked, "How much do you know about Kong Chul-woo?" Seo Do-jun looked back at her. "Is that important?" Yoon Ju-yeon sighed. "Of course, it is. Kong Chul-woo's older brother is the S-ranked hero, Kong Yun-pyo." She expected Seo Do-jun to be shocked, but he merely answered, "I know." Yoon Ju-yeon could not help thinking. He knows that, yet he still acts like none of this matters. This man is far too reckless. She continued warning him. Kong Chul-woo has been able to act this arrogantly because his brother protects him. What you just did was incredibly dangerous. Seo Do-jun offered no explanation and merely smiled. Yoon Ju-yeon stared at him for several seconds. "Are you telling me you aren't afraid of Kong Yun-pyo?" Seo Do-jun calmly answered, "It appears you still don't understand me very well, Miss Yoon." Yoon Ju-yeon finally explained why she had come. "My uncle asked me to find you. He wants to purchase every magic stone you possess." Seo Do-jin studied her serious expression. "I have far more than you imagine." Yoon Ju-yeon answered, "An S-rank hero also has far more money than you imagine." Accepted without hesitation. "Fine. But I have one condition, something you can accomplish very easily." Meanwhile, inside another office, a woman furiously smashed a bottle against the floor. She shouted, "Why? Weren't we told Seo Do-jun died inside the rift?" The bald man did not dare avoid the bottle flying toward him and could only explain what had happened. The Hero Association did officially declare Seo Do-jun dead. "Stop making excuses," the woman snapped. "How are you going to deal with this?" Before she could continue, the bald man said, "According to our latest information, Seo Do-jun has already taken revenge on Kong Chul-woo. He may have learned something from him." The woman's expression darkened. "Damn it. If my father hears about this, things will become extremely complicated. We have to stop the information from spreading." She issued another order. "Make sure every news outlet keeps quiet. The bald man assured her that the matter had already been handled and the media would not report anything. The woman finally relaxed and praised him for his work. However, the bald man continued, as you know, that doesn't solve the real problem. That's why I came to report this personally. He leaned closer and whispered, Kong Chul-woo's older brother is Kong Young-pyo. Cold sweat immediately covered the woman's face. You mean the Kong Young-pyo I know? Kong Chul-woo was notorious throughout the hero community. The public believed Kong Young-pyo deeply loved his younger brother. In reality, Kong Kyo-woo was merely a tool who handled all of his older brother's dirty work. If the police or media began investigating Kong Kyo-woo, Kong Kyo would also be placed at risk. Kong Kyung-kyo was certain to take action against So Do-jin. The woman remained silent for a moment. In that case, arrange a meeting between Kong Young-pyo and me. There's also Hwang Chun-sip from HCS Capital. I heard he betrayed us. Contact Prosecutor Park immediately. They need to pay for this. 37 rifts had currently been discovered across South Korea. 5 were gradually transforming into gates. Hunting rights inside the remaining rift zones could only be negotiated by heroes affiliated with the Hero Association. A mechanical announcement sounded at the entrance. Identity confirmed. S-rank hero, Yoon Ju-yeon. Once the guards completed the verification, Yoon Ju-yeon led her party toward the rift. Following behind them, Seo Do-jun thought, just as I expected. Young In-ju asked curiously, this is unusual. Captain Yoon almost never volunteers for a rift hunt. Yoon Ju-yeon answered awkwardly, I had nothing else to do. As she spoke, she discreetly glanced at Seo Do-jun walking behind the party. Yoon Ju-yeon recalled the condition he had proposed. Take me inside a rift, and I'll sell you every magic stone I possess, including the hero crystal, at market value. When she heard that condition, Yoon Ju-yeon briefly wondered whether So Do-jin had lost his mind. However, even without her uncle's request, she personally needed the hero crystal. After entering the rift, Young In-ju asked again, who's that man behind us? Is he a potential boyfriend? Yoon Ju-yeon sighed. He simply owes me a favor. Young In-ju looked even more surprised. Even an S-rank hero lets people owe her favors? At that moment, every member of the party sensed approaching danger. They quickly formed a defensive formation and stared ahead. A massive bird with razor-sharp metal claws suddenly burst from the trees. One of the party members immediately recognized it. It's a Cocastrian. Yoon Ju-yeon began directing the party to prepare for battle. Before anyone could respond, Seo Do-jun charged toward the creature like a hunting leopard. His sudden movement drew startled cries from the entire party. An enormous amount of mana gathered around Seo Do-jun's fist. Eternal flame ignited around his hand and his burning fist slammed into the monster's skull. The enormous Cocastrian crashed to the ground after a single strike. Every member of the party stared at Seo Do-jun. He looked down at the motionless monster before him. Seo Do-jun raised his foot and delivered another crushing blow. So that's what it takes to kill one. Young In-ju finally recovered and hurriedly asked Yoon Ju-young, who exactly is that man? Yoon Ju-young was equally stunned and could only answer, someone extremely powerful. Young In-ju turned toward her with disbelief written across her face. Once she recovered, she said, but if we're only talking about knocking it down, you could do that too. Young In-ju pointed at the monster and the shattered ground, gesturing dramatically as she spoke. Even Yoon Ju-hyun began wondering how much power Seo Do-jun was hiding. Young In-ju made a serious suggestion, Captain Yoon, perhaps we should change our plan and head directly to the core region ahead of them. Seo Do-jun slowly drove a dagger into the monster's abdomen to remove its magic crystal. When Yoon Ju-hyun approached, he bluntly told her, I have no intention of sharing my loot with people who contributed nothing instead of taking offense. Yoon Ju-hyun replied, in that case, you should consider traveling deeper into the rift. Seo Do-jun responded with a meaningful smile. Interesting. Yoon Ju-hyun turned away. I know this rift very well. I can guide you. With those words, she raced toward the depths of the rift. Seo Do-jun watched her rapidly disappearing figure. A moment later, he launched himself in the same direction, leading shattered ground and a stunned party behind. If Yoon Ju-hyun moved like a bullet, then Seo Do-jun moved like light itself. A man left behind watched them disappear and asked, In-ju, should we follow them? Young In-ju sighed. We'd never keep up. People like us are only supporting players. We should stay here and hunt around the perimeter. They looked at the monster's corpse and began questioning their own ranks. Before S-rank powerhouses, Even a rank hero seemed as insignificant as dust. Yoon Ju-young glanced behind her while running, but could not see So Do-jun. She prepared to slow down, only for his voice to come from directly behind her. "Can't you go any faster?" The sudden voice startled Yoon Ju-yeon so badly that she stumbled and nearly fell. Disbelief filled her eyes. When it came to speed, she ranked second in all of South Korea. So Do-jun calmly commented, "I didn't expect you to be this slow. A moment ago, you looked determined to shake me off and keep all the fighting to yourself." Yoon Ju-yeon's face instantly turned red. At his teasing, So Do-jun looked toward a distant mountain. "What's over there?" Yoon Ju-yeon followed his gaze. "That's the nest of this Rift's boss. The Rift Lord is an enormous monster that resembles a wyvern." Yoon Ju-yeon warned him seriously. According to the association's estimates, it would take at least 3 S-rank heroes working together to kill it. So Do-jun asked, "Is that the monster that drops an orange-grade magic crystal?" He took a step toward the Rift Lord's nest. Watching him, Yoon Ju-yeon felt an ominous suspicion. "You aren't seriously planning to challenge it, are you?" Before Yoon Ji-yeon could finish speaking, So Do-jun vanished, leaving only a violent gust behind. A sudden sense of dread rose inside Yoon Ji-yeon. No longer concerned about his terrifying strength, she raced after him at full speed and tried to stop him from challenging the Rift Lord. However, when Yoon Ju-yeon reached the nest, the sight before her left her completely stunned. What happened here? The dragon-like monster lay motionless, its blood covering the surrounding rocks. So Do-jun calmly pulled out his dagger and prepared to remove the magic crystal from its body. The Rift Lord was known as Kazarian, and its power was terrifying. Even Go-hyeol, the S-rank hero who became famous for killing one, had paid an enormous price. During his first attempt, Go-hyeol brought 30 A-rank heroes with him. All 30 A-rank heroes were killed. Go-hyeol was the only person who barely escaped alive. He later gathered another S-rank hero and 200 A-rank heroes for a second battle against Kazarian. Countless abilities struck the monster at once, yet none of them could penetrate its nearly indestructible scales. Kazarian released a single roar. The resulting shockwave sent every hero flying. They eventually killed Kazarian, but more than 90% of the participating heroes were either killed or critically wounded. Go-hyeol's massive Sweet Home Guild was devastated by the losses and failed to recover its former strength even after 3 years. CEO Do-jin looked back at the stunned Jin. "You understand that you contributed nothing, right?" Without seeing it personally, no one would have believed that the terrifying Kazarian could not withstand even one attack from So Do-jun. So Do-jun examined the orange-gray magic crystal in his hand. "It appears I no longer need a guide. From now on, I'll explore this rift alone." Yoon Ji-yeon quickly asked, "Aren't you taking the materials from Kazarian's body aside from its magic crystal? Its scales, bones, and other body parts are incredibly valuable." Her words made So Do-jun pause. He glanced back and calmly answered, "Those materials are worthless to me. Instead of wasting time processing them, I'd rather hunt more monsters that produce magic crystals. You can keep the remaining materials as payment for guiding me." Yoon Ju-yeon stared at the incredibly valuable carcass lying at her feet. Her cheeks turned slightly red. "I don't need them either." Meanwhile, the party members near the rift's entrance stared at several enormous backpacks. After a long silence, one of them finally spoke. "That man borrowed a massive backpack earlier, and he returned with it completely full. It's filled with magic crystals. Our entire guild couldn't gather this many even after hunting for 3 days and nights." "Who is he?" Another member answered seriously. "His speed and the amount he collected aren't even the biggest problems. He wore no combat suit and carried almost no equipment, yet he killed the Rift Lord alone. No one else in South Korea could do that. Even worldwide, only a handful of people might be capable of it." As Young In-ju sincerely marveled at So Do-jun's strength, he returned carrying several more bags filled with magic crystals. So Do-jun dropped the bags onto the ground, leaving the party members staring in disbelief. No one would believe this. How did he bring back so many again? Young In-ju ordered everyone to keep the matter secret since anyone who heard the truth would assume they were insane. Before the others could react, Yoon Ju-yeon approached So Do-jun and began speaking quietly with him, watching them. The party members assumed the two were romantically involved. Some even thought So Do-jun might be the only man worthy of Yoon Ju-yeon. Young In-ju felt as though she had discovered a secret. This was the first time she had seen anyone treat Yoon Ju-yeon so bluntly. While everyone watched, Jun handed Yoon Ju-yeon an entire bag of magic crystals. He then ignored their stunned expressions and headed toward the wrist's exit. Young In-ju asked in confusion, why is he leaving? Does he not want any of the magic crystals in these bags? Yoon Ju-yeon explained, he thinks becoming famous would be troublesome. So he asked us to handle everything for him. Young In-ju could not help sighing. How can a man like that even exist? Yoon Ju-yeon watched Jun leave and quietly agreed. Yes. How can a man like that exist? Meanwhile, inside the headquarters of a major guild in Seoul, a man repeatedly struck a heavy punching bag in the training room. The bag weighed several 100 pounds, yet it swung violently beneath his fists. Another powerful punch caused the reinforced bag to burst apart. The man cursed furiously. Damn it. I'm Go Hae-yeol, an S-rank hero and the master of a major guild. How did I fall this far? The assistant beside him quickly bowed. Guildmaster, enduring temporary humiliation will bring lasting glory. If you survive this difficult period, your future reputation will rise even higher than before. Go Hae-yeol wiped the sweat from his face and gradually accepted the assistant's reasoning. He answered grimly, you're right. I'll make everyone who looked down on me pay. The assistant continued flattering him. The longer power remains suppressed, the more terrifying it becomes when released. When that day comes, they'll all kneel before you and beg forgiveness. Besides, no one in South Korea understands how to defeat better than you. Sooner or later, they'll come begging for your help. Go Hyul accepted the water from his assistant and nodded. You're right. There aren't many people in South Korea who understand Khazarian as well as I do. Still, the Sweet Home Guild has lost far too much power compared to 3 years ago. Even so, I'm the only person capable of developing a complete strategy to defeat that dragon. The assistant immediately agreed. Exactly. Other than a genius like you, Guild Master, no one else could possibly do it. Their smug laughter continued echoing through the training hall. Meanwhile, inside an indoor golf range, Kang Young-pyo briefly examined the file in his hand. So Jin, is this the Nan? The suited man beside him immediately answered, yes. Several months ago, Kang Chul-woo threw him into a gate and tried to have the monsters kill him. Kang Young-pyo interrupted him. But instead of dying, he escaped alive and somehow awakened under those conditions. The suited man continued. The client was Hong Hee-ju, an executive director of T Group and the second daughter of W Group. Kang Young-pyo raised an eyebrow. A privileged heiress born into a chaebol family? What does she want from him? Seo Do-jun is reportedly T Group's illegitimate son. He was brought into the family at 7, but 6 years ago, Hong Hee-ju gave birth to a son and threw him out. Kang Young-pyo sneered. Seo Do-jun still shares that family's blood. Wealthy families truly are heartless. So how much did Cheol-woo receive for the job? When he heard the amount was 3 billion won, Kang Young-pyo looked disgusted. He ruined himself for such a pathetic amount of money. Kang Chul-woo had suffered severe burns across his body, lost his eyesight, and was now barely alive. Kang Young-pyo smiled coldly. So Do-jun certainly showed no mercy. If it had been me, I would have cut off Cho-woo's limbs and left him as a living stump. The suited man added, there are also rumors that Yoon Ju-yeon helped So Do-jun. At the mention of Yoon Ju-yeon, Kang Young-pyo's swing went off course, sending the golf ball flying to the side. He spun toward the suited man. Why would Yoon Ju-yeon help that bastard? What kind of relationship do they have? Sweat covered the suited man's forehead as Kang Young-pyo moved closer. Well, Yoon Ju-yeon gave a statement to the police. That's why the incident Kang Cho-woo caused at the restaurant was resolved so quickly. Kang Young-pyo grabbed the man by his collar and roared. Investigate them immediately. I want to know exactly what kind of relationship they have. The suited man ran toward the exit with trembling legs. Understood. I'll uncover everything. Kang Young-pyo's anger did not fade, and the golf club in his hands began bending under the pressure. He cursed under his breath. Damn it. Hong Hee-ji will probably contact me soon. She'll want me to clean up the mess Cho-woo created. Still, if she's a chaebol heiress, she should be willing to pay generously. Meanwhile, beneath a streetlight, Seo Do-jun considered the day's results. Hunting inside rifts is far more efficient than hunting inside gates. Do I have to rely on Yoon Ju-yeon every time I want to enter one? He recalled their earlier conversation. If Khazarian's magic crystal appeared on the market, the media would inevitably investigate its origin and the details of the hunt. For that reason, Yoon Ju-yeon had no intention of selling the crystal. However, She made it clear that she would not stop Seo Do-jin if he wanted the fame. His answer was to toss the crystal directly into her hands. Perhaps I can find another way to enter Rift's freeway. For now, I should return to the new house. Hwang Chong-suk arranged for us and get some rest. As So Do-jun approached his new home, he noticed several unfamiliar pairs of shoes beside the door. The moment he opened it, Eun-young screamed from inside. A group of suited men were sitting around Grandma and Eun-young. The frightened Eun-young immediately ran into Seo Do-jun's arms. The leader introduced himself and explained that they were investigators from the Seoul District Prosecutor's Office. He then asked whether Seo Do-jun knew Hwang Chong-sip from HCS Capital. The blonde investigator stepped forward. You are suspected of participating in Hwang Chong-sip's illegal loan sharking operation. We are placing you under emergency arrest. Not long afterward, So Do-jin was taken to the Seoul District Prosecutor's Office. He sat calmly inside an interrogation room, his hands cuffed behind him and secured to the chair. So Do-jin silently studied his surroundings. Prosecutor Park Chul-young entered the monitoring room while speaking on the phone. Don't worry. Both Hwang Chung-suk and Seo Do-jun are under my control. Please send my regards to Director Hong. Cleaning garbage from society is my duty as a prosecutor. After ending the call, Park Choi-young entered the interrogation room and slammed a stack of case files in front of Seo Do-jun. Tell me what you've been doing. The charges in these files alone could put you in prison for more than 10 years. So Do-jun immediately recognized that Park Choi-young was using fabricated evidence to frame him. The prosecutor repeatedly demanded a confession, but So Do-jun answered only with silence. His fearless stare infuriated Park Choi-young. Do you think I'm joking? So Do-jun finally spoke. Hong Hee-ju ordered you to do this, didn't she? Park Chul-young's expression instantly froze. He quickly pretended not to understand and denied having any connection to Hong Hee-ju. So Do-jun realized the prosecutor had probably extracted part of the story from Hwang Chong-suk. He had only cooperated because he wanted to prevent the situation from escalating. When Seo Do-jun continued refusing to confess, Park Choi-young lost his patience and prepared to use force. However, the chilling killing intent surrounding Seo Do-jun stopped him in his tracks. Cold sweat quickly soaked Park Choi-young's back. Either stupidity had overcome his fear, or he simply wanted to preserve his authority. Park Choi-young eventually stepped forward. He raised his hand and prepared to slap So Do-jun. The interrogation room door suddenly flew open, interrupting him again. A staff member asked Prosecutor Park to step outside and verify an unusual result. Moments later, Park Chul-young's shocked voice echoed through the hallway. That's impossible. Is the machine broken? His subordinate confirmed that repeated tests have produced the same result. Park Choi-young still could not believe it. Why does the hero detector say So Do-jin is an ordinary person? The subordinate hurriedly explained. We don't know the exact reason. There may be an error in his awakening records. Sweat ran down Park Choi-young's forehead. Who is this man? How does he know Hong Hee-ju's name? Inside the interrogation room, So Do-jun looked at the fabricated files. Just as I thought, this country's justice system is rotten to the core. Perhaps I should kill them all and leave this country with Grandma and Eun-young. However, the person who entered the interrogation room next was completely unexpected. It was Yoon Ju-yeon. She stared at the restrained Seo Do-jun and asked, "Why are you here?" Seo Do-jun calmly answered, "I'm not entirely sure myself." Seeing him handcuffed to the chair, Yoon Ju-yeon's cheeks turned slightly red. "Don't do anything reckless." She prepared to reason with him. But Seo Do-jun asked, "Are you going to help me?" Yoon Ju-yeon replied, "I wouldn't exactly call it helping." She continued firmly, "When an innocent person is framed, the mistake must be corrected. The Hero Association will conduct a full investigation." Seo Do-jun responded with a cold smile. He interrupted her. "What about my family?" Yoon Ju-yeon became annoyed, feeling as though Seo Do-jun was treating her like his personal secretary. However, his genuinely serious expression left her unable to complain. Yoon Ju-yeon suddenly felt awkward. She quickly reassured him, "Your family is safe. I've already assigned people to protect them, so you don't need to worry." So Do-jun finally relaxed. "Thank you. I'll repay this favor." Yoon Ju-yeon's cheeks flushed. "Be patient for a little longer. I'll resolve this as quickly as possible." Yoon Ju-yeon's plan was not to directly prove So Do-jun innocent. Instead, she exposed Prosecutor Park Chul-young's bribery and illegal favors, forcing his dismissal. An impartial investigation then confirmed that Seo Do-jun had no involvement in HCS Capital's crimes. Seo Do-jun still faced punishment using another hero's registration card and hunting without authorization. However, Yoon Joo-yeon's defense reduced the final judgment to a suspended sentence. Later, a news report playing inside the car described a new monster to severed overseas. It resembled a four-eyed mantis and possessed extraordinary jumping ability. Seo Do-jun identified it from the description alone. That's a Maxion. Yoon Joo-yeon stared at him in shock. How do you know that? Only the Hero Association currently knows the monster's name. Monster names were not chosen at random. Every magic crystal carried a unique energy signature that could be analyzed to reveal detailed information about the creature. Modern Earth decoded that information through science, while Seo Do-jun's destroyed world had used magic. This meant that whenever the same monster appeared in both worlds, Seo Do-jun already knew everything about it. Do-jun immediately revealed its weakness. Red flower ant secretions could easily neutralize a Maxion. Seeing Yoon Joo-yeon's curiosity, he explained that the secretion was harmless to humans but had a powerful paralyzing effect on Maxions. Once exposed to the toxin, a Maxion would completely lose its ability to move. Yoon Joo-yeon finally voiced the question that had been bothering her most. Who exactly was Seo Do-jun? The luxury sports car raced down the highway. When Do-jun remained silent, Joo-yeon pressed him for an answer. After a long silence, Do-jun finally spoke. What would happen if I killed Hong Hee-ju? Inside the T-Group executive office, Hong Hee-ju anxiously bit her fingernails. The bald man in a suit standing before her had also fallen silent. Hee-ju demanded, how did things come to this? Why is Yoon Ji-yeon involved? The bald man replied, we still don't know what kind of relationship she has with Do-jun or how they met. That's Yoon Ji-yeon. And what do they mean Do-jun isn't a hero? Wasn't he already an awakener? Everything we've seen suggests that he did. Our best guess is that he possesses an ability that lets him evade hero detectors. Under the pressure of Hee-ju's murderous aura, the bald man hurried to explain. After one failure after another, Hee-ju's murderous intent finally erupted. Contact Kang Young-pyo immediately. Offer him 30 billion won and tell him to eliminate Seo Do-jun. Lounging on a sofa, Kang Young-pyo rejected the offer. 30 billion isn't enough. Double it. His assistant hesitated. Isn't that asking too much? Young-pyo sneered. You don't understand. Once the job is done, that woman won't care about 60 billion. Besides, an S-rank hero is involved. My price is completely reasonable. The assistant broke into a cold sweat and admitted, Yoon Ji-yeon is certainly a dangerous opponent. The wooden table beneath Young-pyo's heel exploded into splinters. Do you think every S-rank hero is equal? I could take care of trash like Yoon Ji-yeon in 20 minutes. The assistant trembled in fear and quickly agreed. Young-pyo asked, by the way, has the association responded? Still shaken by the earlier outburst, the assistant froze for a moment before answering. England can't raise the bounty any further. The association publicly announced that it will select elite heroes and send them as reinforcements. Those association bastards, when do we leave? In 3 days, alongside the Japanese heroes, the Maxion was a newly discovered monster with no known weakness. If Kang Young-pyo uncovered that weakness, his value would skyrocket. In downtown Cambridge, England, an enormous mantis-like monster towered over the street. The heroes had prepared for the unknown creature as thoroughly as they could. Even so, the sight of its massive body made cold sweat run down their backs. The Maxion swung its forelimbs like the sides of death. Their razor-sharp tips stabbed toward the heroes, shattering the solid pavement as everyone narrowly dodged. Suppressing their fear, the heroes charged the monster together. The mage-type heroes in the rear rapidly gather black energy in their hands. The dark blast struck the monster's abdomen as the close-range fighters swung their greatswords. The blades came down directly toward the Maxion's head. Under their combined assault, the monster crashed to the ground, and its mantis-like head was severed. However, the heroes who fought it had already exhausted nearly all their strength. Just as everyone lowered their guard, one team member suddenly stared into the distance. Behind the high rises, several equally massive Maxions were watching them. The man cried out in terror, damn it. Why are there so many of them? The next instant, a claw-like death size plunged straight toward the top of his skull. At the same time, the same nightmare began unfolding throughout the surrounding districts with no useful information about the creatures. England was helpless, and the Cambridge defensive line collapsed. The terrifying horde of Maxians began advancing straight toward the capital. At that moment, a faint mist suddenly spread through the air. The enormous mantis-like monsters abruptly froze as if they had turned to stone. One after another, they crashed heavily to the ground. A military helicopter was flying overhead, spraying red flower ant secretions across the battlefield. Standing among the crowd, Yoon Ju-yeon stared at the immobilized Maxians and said in amazement, "It actually worked." The surrounding heroes praised Ju-yeon, marveling at how incredible she was. Even Ken Young-pyo was stunned. How is this possible? How did Su-do-jun know? Ju-hyun's voice finally snapped Young-pyo out of his daze. Young-pyo drew his sword, and a cold gleam ran along its sharpened blade. Not long afterward, at Seoul International Airport in South Korea, reporters from every major media outlet had gathered outside the arrival gate. They waited eagerly for the expedition's returning heroes. I heard Yoon Ju-hyun was the expedition's top performer. She truly deserves to be called an S-rank hero. Apparently, she discovered the Maxine's weakness. That's why the operation ended so easily. I also heard the British royal family plans to grant her an honorary title. Look, there she is. Ju-yeon walked toward the wall of cameras as reporters bombarded her with questions about how she had discovered the Maxian's weakness. Mr. Kong Young-pil, please give us a comment. We heard you killed more monsters than anyone else during the expedition. Major networks and news outlets broadcast the hero's return live. According to the reports, the key to hunting the Maxians had been spraying red flower ant secretions from the air. Standing outside a high-rise, Do-jun quietly watched the news coverage. He stared at Kong Young-pyo's smiling face on the screen. A cold light flickered in Do-jun's eyes. 2 hours earlier, Do-jun and Yoon Ju-yeon had been sitting inside an upscale restaurant. Do-jun examined the gifts Ju-yeon had placed in front of him. Holding his coffee, he looked at her in confusion. Ju-yeon hurriedly explained that the first 2 gifts were for Eun-yeon and Grandma, while the last one was for him. Under her awkward gaze, Do-jun opened the gift. This outfit looks expensive. Ju-yeon explained that it was merely a thank you gift. Because of Do-jun's warning, she had become the expedition's greatest contributor. Compared with the rewards she had received, those gifts were insignificant. She even offered to buy Do-jin a car, but he refused. Ju-yeon was still curious about how Do-jin knew the Maxian's weakness. Do-jun calmly replied, "Is that something I'm required to answer?" His response left her unable to press him any further. She changed the subject and asked about his future plans. In truth, she only wanted to stop him from going after Hong Hee-ju and Kong Young-pyo. However, Do-jun's answer caught her completely off guard. "I should probably buy a house first." Ju-yeon asked in surprise. "You're still living in a rental?" Meanwhile, a lively pool party was underway inside another luxurious mansion. Beside the pool, a woman slowly handed Kong Young-pyo a glass of liquor. Young-pyo's expression darkened. Yoon Ju-hyun seems different from before. How did she know the Maxian's weakness? Has she been hiding her true abilities all this time? And even if we ignore the Maxians, what's the deal with Seo Do-jin? Young-pyo remembered his conversation with Ju-young aboard the plane. "I heard you brought down a prosecutor to save that kid. You were also there when he crippled Cheol-woo, weren't you?" Ju-young answered, "Kong Cheol-woo attacked first, and he even hired assassins. The murder attempt failed, but he was the one who started everything that day." Young-pyo chuckled. "That bastard Cheol-woo did all of that for a little money. Even if he dies, he deserves it, but he's still my brother. That gives me more than enough reason to take revenge on Seo Do-jun, doesn't it?" Ju-yeon responded with nothing but an indifferent stare. She turned away and said, "Do whatever you want. I won't interfere." Young-pyo began to wonder if Ju-yeon and Do-jun were not as close as he had assumed. Even so, he could not let the matter go. Ju-yeon had clearly said she would not interfere, which meant So Do-jun had to be hiding something. Meanwhile, in a region of England devastated by the monster wave, British authorities planned to collect as many magic crystals as possible before the next wave arrived. The British Hero Association dispatched large numbers of heroes into the area. One man remarked, "With red flower ant secretions, even D-rank heroes like us could hunt Maxians." His teammate agreed. "Yeah. If the rift outbreak had been stopped beforehand, this place would be perfect for collecting high-quality magic crystals. But once a rift has erupted, it can never be stabilized into a controlled gate. I also heard the second wave won't contain Maxians. It'll bring entirely different monsters." Another hero replied, "That's right. Some countries were destroyed in exactly that way. During their conversation, one team member suddenly turned around, leaving the others confused. He muttered, "It feels like something is about to come out, but it's only been 5 hours since the last wave." His teammate warned, "Stay alert. It might just be civilians trying to steal magic crystals." Before he could finish speaking, the rift began shaking violently, and terror spread across both heroes' faces. A humanoid monster clad in metallic armor emerged from the unstable rift, its entire body glowing red. Its piercing gaze swept across the area as murderous pressure flooded the surroundings. "Wait. Look at its clothes and scars. That thing isn't a hero. Contact headquarters immediately." The humanoid monster raised its clawed hand and a thorn halo formed beneath its palm. Several thorn rings instantly appeared around the two heroes. Their bodies became weightless and slowly floated into the air. One hero gritted his teeth and summoned several blades, launching them directly at the humanoid monster. However, the blades could not overcome the crushing power of the thorn rings. The humanoid monster said coldly, "You're far too weak." It merely closed its right hand. The thorn rings tightened like cursed restraints, causing both heroes to scream in agony. The humanoid monster extended its clawed hand once more. Black lightning appeared across its palm as the energy surrounding its body converged at its fingertips. A mysterious data panel appeared before it. Staring at the panel, it muttered, "By this world's calendar, 10 years should have passed. How have I recovered less than 20%? Did it fail? It took so much effort to trigger this rift. It seems I'll have to increase this world's mana concentration." One of the dying heroes could only stare at the creature in confusion. A cold smile slowly spread across the humanoid monster's face. The corpse beside it suddenly exploded into pieces. "But before that, I should wipe out every last one of these insects." 2 months earlier, Dujin had arrived at a rift zone in Paju, South Korea. He walked alone across a vast stretch of grassland, quietly studying his surroundings. Juju muttered, "Are they coming?" The ground beneath his feet suddenly began to shake. Several creatures resembling deadly desert worms burst from beneath the earth. They shattered the ground around Dujun before diving underground again. Dojin looked down at the massive tunnels they had left behind. He placed his palm against the ground and instantly detected 26 identical monsters within a 100-meter radius. "Let's see how many of you survive." Blazing fire began gathering at his palm. The flame appeared ordinary, but it contained the eternal flame, which could never be extinguished. Moments later, the tunnels surrounding Dojin began exploding one after another. Shattered remains erupted from below like debris launched from a volcano. Dojin stood beneath the spectacle and calmly watched it unfold. A faint smile appeared on his face. Meanwhile, a meeting was underway at the Korean Hero Association headquarters. Na Tae-won asked the deputy director before him, "What kind of man is Seo Do-jin?" Min Hong-ki answered, "He may be a difficult young man to control. He has also personally confirmed that he is a hero." Na Tae-won asked, "Didn't you say the hero detector couldn't identify him?" Min Hong-ki replied, "We still don't have enough information to explain that." Vice Chairman Park Sung-chul shouted, "That brat is far too arrogant. When the association asks a question, he should answer honestly." Na Tae-won raised one hand, instantly silencing Park Sung-chul. Na Tae-won continued, "Do we have any other information?" Min Hong-ji could only report the few details they had gathered. The entire incident began with Kong Kol-woo's attempted murder. He threw Seo Dojin, who was still an ordinary man at the time, into a gate and left him to die. Dojin survived the ordeal and became an awakener. Afterward, he single-handedly resolved the new rift in Mapo and took revenge on Kong Chul-woo. His personal actions were admittedly somewhat excessive. However, we can confirm that he possesses enough power to completely overwhelm B-rank heroes. Na Tae-won considered the report. He sounds like a wild horse that will be difficult to tame, but he is certainly a rare and exceptional one. Min Hongdi continued. He also applied for full hero registration through the expedited process. His sponsor is the S-rank hero, Yoon Ju-yeon. That revelation surprised both the chairman and the vice chairman. Elsewhere, Do-jun casually examined the special hero registration card in his hand, South Korea's 8th S-rank hero. Thanks to that card, he could now hunt monsters freely inside rift zones. Back at association headquarters, Na Tae-won burst into laughter after hearing the report. He went straight to the Paju rift zone as soon as he received his registration card. "What remarkable initiative!" Park Sung-chul exclaimed. "Wait. He entered a level 2 rift alone without equipment or any guild members. Is he insane? Na Tae-wong and Min Hong-gi both stared at the ignorant vice-chairman in disbelief. Park Sung-kol finally realized his mistake, but his embarrassment was quickly replaced by greed. If this Seo Dojin comes back alive, we should reveal his identity and promote him everywhere. He's South Korea's 8th S-rank hero. Min Hong-ki warned. That may not be what he wants. Shouldn't we ask for his permission first? Park Sung-chul argued. Deputy Director Min, wouldn't the appearance of another S-rank hero reassure the public during a crisis like this? Don't you agree, Chairman? Nah. Tae-won remained silent for a moment before answering. I understand both of your opinions. I'll meet him in person and decide afterward. Back inside the Paiyu Rift, an enormous worm monster screamed beneath Dojin's foot. Several more creatures of equal size roared and charged toward him. Dojin calmly studied every movement they made. He used his palm as the hilt and shaped the undying eternal flame into a blade. In a single instant, dozens of monsters were cut down by the flaming sword. Dojin descended from the air, intense heat still rising from his hand. The severed bodies of the worm monsters came crashing down behind him. With the eternal flame burning around both hands, Dojin carefully surveyed the area. As he withdrew his mana, the flames around his hands disappeared. That still consumes too much mana. It looks like I'll need to prepare some proper weapons. Dojin headed to the Gasan Hero Weapon Center. A young man stood behind the counter, completely absorbed in a handheld video game. Dojin entered the shop carrying a large bag filled with materials. He placed the bag beside the counter. I want these materials forged into a weapon. Without even looking up, the young man replied, sorry. We only accept appointments. If you don't have one, try another shop. Dojin said, I heard your schedule was completely full and that you weren't accepting new orders. The young man finally looked up and said, that's right. We don't have time for any more work. As soon as he finished speaking, Dojin grabbed him by the collar. The terrified young man shouted, are you insane? Dojin replied coldly, bring your boss out here. The young man had no choice but to walk toward the back of the shop. He called through the rear door. Dad, a customer wants to see you. Choi Chao-gwon emerged with a puzzled expression. Who referred you to us? Dojin calmly gave him the name of the person who had sent him. The mention of S-rank hero Yoon Ju-hyun left both father and son stunned. Choi Chao-gwon asked in disbelief. Yoon Ju-hyun really sent you here? However, when Dojin pulled the materials from his bag, both men were too shocked to speak. The young man asked, Dad, what is that? After examining it, Choi Chao-kwon answered, it's a fong from a giant black venom killer snake. I haven't seen material like this in years, Dojin said. Use it to forge me a proper longsword. Choi Chao-kwon objected. A non-metal material like this loses durability when made too long. It would be better to forge two shorter swords. Dojin asked, are you admitting that you lack the skill before you even try? Join the two fangs together and forge them into a single longsword and maximize the weapon's ability to absorb mana. Enraged by Dojin's demands, the young man shouted, every weapon my father makes is rated grade 3 or better. Dojin silently studied the furious young man for a moment. He then took a long sword from the shop's display rack. This looks like a grade 5 weapon at best. Dojin grips the blade with both hands and applied force. As mana flowed into the weapon, the sword began radiating light. Before the stunned father and son, the solid blade gradually bent out of shape, unable to withstand the pressure. The long sword shattered into pieces. Both men stared speechlessly at the fragments scattered across the floor. Dojin said calmly, if this is the best you can make, then forget it. Faced with Dojin's criticism, Choi Chao-gwon fell completely silent. Deep inside a rift, sunlight fell across the body of a massive one-eyed giant. The sleeping creature suddenly opened its eye. A dangerous presence spreading through the area filled it with unease. It turned toward the source and released a deafening roar. Dojin approached at a leisurely pace and remarked, still as noisy as ever, blazing fire erupted around his hand. The one-eyed giant swung its massive foot at him. But Dojin avoided it with a slight shift of his body. The flames in his hand gathered into a crimson sword. Dojin swung the flaming blade into the giant's shoulder. The creature's agonized roar echoed throughout the area. It ripped a tree trunk from the ground and hurled it at Dojin. With one casual slash, Dojin split the incoming trunk in half. Without slowing down, he continued charging toward the one-eyed giant. Fear finally appeared in the monster's eye. The next instant, the crimson blade tore through its enormous body. By the time the sword light faded, Dujun had already dashed behind the creature. However, mana surged toward the giant's wound, causing the torn flesh to regenerate. Within moments, its injuries had completely healed. Dujun swung his flame-covered hand and leaped behind the one-eyed giant once more. His fingertips struck a pressure point on the creature's back with perfect accuracy. The impact disturbed its mana as if triggering a hidden mechanism inside its body, causing the giant to scream as though it were burning alive. Dujun seized the opening and severed its neck with the flaming sword. The crimson blade swept through the air, leaving only a thin trail of fire behind. The enormous headless body lost its balance and crashed beside Dojin. Studying the weakened flames in his hand, Dojin muttered, "Maintaining a mana sword with my current power really isn't easy." He then pulled a glass container from his backpack. Dujun collected several liters of blood from around the giant's heart and poured it into the container. Through the clear glass, the pale red blood reflected Dujun's silhouette. By evening, Dujun returned to the weapon shop carrying another bag of materials. He placed a container of the one-eyed giant's blood in front of Choi Chulgwon. "With this, you'll be able to join the two fangs together easily." After saying that, Dojin turned and left under Choi Chulgwon's puzzled gaze. He had now gathered nearly all the basic materials needed for the weapon. However, improving its mana absorption required one more crucial material, and it could only be found in Brazil. At that moment, Yoon Ju-yeon was relaxing beside a swimming pool. A sudden phone call interrupted her rest. When Ju-yeon answered, she was stunned to hear that Dujun wanted to travel to Brazil. Two striking women were sitting beside the luxurious pool. They were Young In-ju and Yoon Ju-yeon. Before Dujun's call, they had been discussing the association's plan to send heroes to Brazil. Young In-ju removed her sunglasses and said, "The association is offering decent compensation, so our guild has decided to participate." She looked at Ju-yeon and added, "Bring that man with us. He is the 8th rank hero everyone has been talking about. Right? There are even rumors that the two of you are romantically involved." Ju-yeon hurriedly denied it. But In-ju wrapped her arms around her and teased, "Don't pretend. I've seen the two of you together." After In-ju repeatedly pleaded with her, Ju-yeon finally agreed to invite Dujun. However, she warned, "I have no idea whether he'll agree to come." Back at the weapon shop, Choi Chul-gwon stared in amazement at the perfectly joined fangs. These materials aren't metal, so how did they fuse together this perfectly? He was even more curious about how Dojin knew the blood of a one-eyed giant could produce such an effect. Dojin gave him another instruction. "Shape it like a two-handed greatsword, but design the grip so I can wield it with one hand." Choi Chul-gwon had originally assumed that Dujun was merely an arrogant man with no manners. He hesitated before saying, "The finished sword will weigh around 5 kilograms. That may be too heavy for one-handed use, and its mana absorption rating will only reach grade 7 at best." Dujun replied calmly, "Grade 7? I wonder if that can withstand my full power. It looks like I really do need that other material. Complete the weapon's basic shape first. I'll bring you the remaining materials later." Choi Chul-gwon was once again left speechless by Dujun's words. He could only stand inside the shop and watch as Dujun walked away. Dujun met Yoon Ju-yeon in a downtown parking lot. A brand new luxury Rolls-Royce was parked in front of them. Dujun looked at Ju-yeon and sincerely thanked her. Ju-yeon calmly replied that a gift like this was nothing to her. Dujun answered, "But to me, it's extremely valuable." As Ju-yeon stared at Dujun's handsome profile, her cheeks gradually turned red. Dujun carefully examined the car, something he had never seen in his former world. This unexpectedly curious side of him left Ju-yeon momentarily speechless. Dujun added, "The association originally planned to reveal my identity, but I already warned them against it." Ju-yeon fell silent. As Dojin climbed into the car, he sat in the driver's seat and began testing the vehicle's controls. Ju-yeon said, "The association is overwhelmed by the situation in Brazil right now. Once everything settles down, I'll arrange a proper meeting between you and the chairman." During their conversation, their arms accidentally brushed against each other. Dujun turned toward her and asked, "Are you going to Brazil too?" His voice sounded so close to her ear that Joyeon's face turned red and her mind went completely blank. Dujun continued, "Then come with me." His words sounded almost like a marriage proposal, leaving Joyeon completely flustered. Elsewhere, Hong Hee-ju angrily demanded to know how much more money Kong Young-pyo wanted. Young-pyo replied that the current payment was still not enough. Hee-ju snapped, "I should never have hired people like you. Young Pyo sighed before saying, since you're paying me 30 billion won, I'll give you one piece of information for free. Seo Doojeon is now an S-rank hero. In fact, he's South Korea's 8th S-rank. Hee-ju recoiled in terror and asked, that little bastard is an S-rank hero? Under her doubtful gaze, Young Pyo slowly rose from his seat. Just before he left the room, Hee-ju called out and stopped him. Trembling uncontrollably, she asked, is Soo Dojin really an S-rank hero? She then shouted in fear. I'll pay you as much as you want. No matter what it takes, you have to eliminate him. Young Pyo smiled wickedly before replying, money isn't the only thing I want. If we become business partners, I might be willing to handle this for you. With murderous intent in her eyes, Hee-ju finally accepted his terms. At that moment, a new message arrived on Young Pyo's phone. Cold sweat ran down Hee-ju's face as the fear inside her continued to grow. After carefully reading the message, Young Pyo sneered. It looks like even fate is on your side. Hee-ju stared at him in confusion. Young Pyo said darkly, the perfect opportunity to kill Seo Doojeon has arrived. At that very moment, a plane was heading toward Brazil. Major news networks reported live that 5 South Korean S-rank heroes had been deployed for the Brazil operation. The first was Jang Sung-ho, the man who elevated P Group to the top of South Korea's business world. The second was Go Hae-yeol, the hero famous for successfully hunting Kasarine. The third was Yoon Joo-hyun, widely celebrated as a national hero. The fourth was Kang Young-pyo, a man notorious for his cruelty and greed. The final member was Seo Dojin, South Korea's mysterious 8th S-rank hero. Kang Young-kyo secretly studied Dojin from across the cabin, while Dojin casually ate instant noodles as the others prepared for battle. The plane steadily approached Brazil at that time in Sao Paulo, Brazil. An emergency meeting was underway inside the Brazilian Hero Association headquarters. One official marveled at the South Korean team's efficiency. Of all the participating countries, South Korea had arrived first. Some of their heroes had not even stopped at their accommodations before heading straight into action. The official's expression grew tense. He feared the South Korean heroes might uncover the information Brazil was hiding. The man in charge replied, no secret remains hidden forever. We only need to protect it until the operation is over. The string of unexpected incidents made the official release, Ho Weary Sigh. According to reports from the front line, an unidentified entity had killed one of Brazil's S-rank heroes. Surveillance footage showed that the killer was not a monster, but a clearly human figure. The question was why a human had emerged from a rift. The official fell into deep thought, wondering what had happened inside the rift zone near Center M. Meanwhile, an official inside the frontline command center was briefing the foreign heroes who had to assist. Yoon Joo-hyun was distracted by Doojeon's disappearance. She had not seen him since they stepped off the plane. Doojeon had already caught a connecting flight and traveled alone to a much more distant location. Joo-hyun was stunned when she found out. She could not understand why he had gone alone to the most dangerous rift zone. The official finished his explanation and assigned each team a rift sector to handle. With the sector assignments complete, Brazil's intelligence briefing came to an end. Ju Yen carried her luggage outside and prepared to leave in a taxi. However, just as the taxi was about to depart, a man blocked its path. Kang Young-pyo asked, the operation hasn't even started. Why are you already leaving? Ju Hyun eventually told him where she was going. As the taxi disappeared into the distance, Young-pyo wondered why she was heading somewhere even the Brazilian authorities treated with extreme caution. Meanwhile, inside the rift zone near St. Darum, Ju Yen and her party had rushed there and were now following closely behind Doojeon. Ju Yen asked, why were you in such a hurry to get here? She added, if you had explained everything earlier, we wouldn't have been left waiting around. After her repeated questions, Doojeon finally revealed the purpose of his trip. Ju Yan's eyes widened as she asked, that's it? That's your entire reason? She could not believe Doojeon had lured her all the way there merely to collect materials. Watching the two argue ahead of her, Young In-ju thought that Doojeon might be the only man capable of leading Yoon Joo-hyun around by the nose. One party member asked nervously, is it really safe to enter the rift zone like this? A teammate reassured him, but he was still curious about the newcomer walking beside their leader. When the teammate heard him call Dojin a newcomer, he burst out laughing. Not all rookies are equal. If we're talking about Soo Dojin, he may be the strongest rookie in history. The others watched. Dojin and Joo-hyun continue arguing. Still looking somewhat doubtful, Joo-hyun asked, are you planning to seal off this entire area? Jun answered calmly, why would I seal it? I came here for materials. So naturally, I'm going to strip this place clean. As soon as he finished speaking, a metallic claw lunged toward the party. The hero, blocking the attack, broke into a cold sweat under its overwhelming force. The spear-wielding team member shouted, everyone prepare for battle. Even as he issued the warning, he could not hide his fear. These monsters were far more terrifying than the intelligence reports had suggested. The other party members also began showing signs of panic. Just then, a calm voice cut through the confusion. In full view of the group, Dojin drew the sword hanging from his waist. Before Dojin left, Choi Chil-gwon had learned that he needed to extract the hearts of blue crocodiles and offered to help. He lent Dojin a treasured sword he had preserved for years. Now as Dojin channeled mana into it, the blade began trembling violently. Dojin pushed off the ground and charged directly into the monsters. In a single instant, he flashed between the creatures and appeared behind them. The monsters froze in place as if time itself had stopped. Moments later, countless cracks spread across their metallic bodies. Once the fractures reached their limit, the monsters shattered into pieces. The watching heroes erupted in disbelief. One of them exclaimed, how can that man possibly be this powerful? That night, deep inside the Santrum Rift, the heroes gathered around a campfire, still marveling at the incredible power Dojin had displayed earlier that day. One man quietly told his teammate about Dojin's incredible feat inside the Kazarian Rift. Kazarian had been so powerful that even the S-rank hero Go Hae-yul barely escaped with his life during his first attempt. Yet that same monster had been defeated by Dojin in a single move. Just then, Yoon Ju-yeon approached from behind and asked whether the blue crocodile hearts had been processed. Dojin pointed toward the crates behind him. As you can see, they're already seeing how far he had traveled for them. Ju-yeon began wondering what he planned to do with the hearts. She then noticed the meat cooking over the fire. She had never seen blue meat before. Jun told her it was blue crocodile meat. Leaving Ju-young momentarily stunned, she asked, we prepared plenty of supplies before coming here. Why are you eating blue crocodile meat? Jin casually placed a piece in his mouth and replied, if you don't want any, then don't eat it. The others struggled to believe their eyes as Jun ate the sizzling monster meat. Even young In-ju was amazed by his courage. She could not understand why Dojin would eat something like that when they had plenty of normal food. Dojin remained unconcerned and picked up another piece of grilled meat. Perhaps her curiosity got the better of her because even Ju-yeon wanted to try it. Simply because Jin said it was safe, the S-rank hero, Yoon Ju-yeon, trusted him without hesitation. Her reaction struck young In-ju like a bolt of lightning, leaving her frozen in disbelief. Ju-yeon slowly placed the blue meat in her mouth. Ju-yeon's eyes widened as she said, that's strange. It actually tastes amazing. Young In-ju quietly moved closer to Dojin beside the campfire. She sat close beside him and asked with open curiosity, what did you do to make Yoon Ju-yeon so interested in you? She's never cared this much about any man before. Dojin fell into thought. In his former life, he had never lacked attention from women. Several noblewomen at the Imperial Academy had openly shown interest in him. Even the youngest and most gifted princess of the Leslian royal family had paid him special attention. Then there was the woman who had once stood beside him against the demons. However, young In-ju's persistent questioning quickly interrupted his memories. Faced with her relentless curiosity, Ju-yeon finally decided to answer. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he replied seriously, maybe it's because I'm handsome. Young In-ju fell into a long silence after hearing his answer. When she finally recovered, she decided it was the most painfully awkward answer she had ever heard. She immediately began using it to tease Yoon Ju-yeon. Meanwhile, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, a subordinate was reporting to Kong Young Pyo who sat on a sofa. Young Pyo could not understand why Ju-yeon's group had rushed to Santa before the operation even began. She had chosen to remain with Seo Dojin, while the other S-rank heroes were forced to operate separately. The Santarum Rift offered very little profit and Brazilian authorities have repeatedly warned that it was extremely dangerous. Young Pyo cursed under his breath. Damn it. Everything involving Seo Do-jun is completely unpredictable. On the other end of the phone, Hong Hee-ju demanded to know why Young Pyo had not taken action yet. The head of T Group, who was also Seo Do-jun's grandfather, had begun paying attention to him. This terrified Hee-ju, causing her to pressure Young Pyo to move faster. She warned that if he failed to handle the situation soon, he would not receive a single cent. Looking at the terrain map before him, young Pyo gave her his assurance. Don't worry. So Dojin will never make it back alive this time. He marked a location on the map. Yun Pyo then turned to his subordinate. Contact Goji immediately. Dojin was currently advancing deeper into the rift with Yoon Ju-yun's party. According to the map, the area ahead was classified as extremely dangerous. It was inhabited by cunning monsters known as lynx demon foxes. Du-jun muttered, so they're here too. His words left Ju-jun slightly puzzled. Du-jun continued forward alone. Ju-jun had expected this since he had acted the same way inside the Khazarian rift. She chose not to stop him and simply held out a pair of earplugs saying, at least wear these. Du-jun accepted the item and asked, what are they? Ju-yen explained, earplugs. They'll prevent the lynx demon foxes from bewitching you. Du-jun handed them back and replied, keep them for yourselves. I don't need them. Watching Du-jun disappear into the distance made Ju-yun increasingly anxious. However, Du-jun showed no intention of stopping and continued deeper into the forest alone. Darkness gradually spread across the entire forest. Even as night fell, Ju-yun continued insisting that Du-jun wear the earplugs. At that moment, a dark figure hidden on a high branch was quietly watching him. Moonlight revealed its pitch-black body. It was a lynx demon fox. The moment the party spotted the creature, terror spread across their faces. Young Inju urgently shouted, everyone cover your ears. Don't let it bewitch you. The party's panic did nothing to shake Du-jin. To him, the distant creature was another monster he could kill in one strike. The lynx demon fox raised its head and released a piercing howl filled with hypnotic power. Everyone hurriedly covered their ears to resist the unnatural sound. Even the S-rank hero Yoon Ju-yun was no exception. However, So Du-jin calmly stared at the creature before him. Ju-yun watched him in disbelief. She could not understand why he had not covered his ears or why the howl had no effect on him. Du-jin bent down and picked up a stone. The eternal flame, which could never be extinguished, erupted from his palm. Du-jun tossed the stone with what appeared to be a casual motion. However, it shot through the air like a flaming cannonball. The party members stared in shock, their hands still covering their ears. The attack was so fast that no one had time to react. The stone injured the lynx demon fox, causing it to turn and flee deeper into the forest. Du-jun chased after it without hesitation. Yoon Ju-hyun and Young In-ju frozen in surprise, wondering why the fox's hypnotic cry had suddenly stopped. They hurried after Dojin and soon found him standing still ahead of them. Several lynx demon foxes were perched on the branches in front of him. Dojin stood alone before the pack without the slightest trace of fear. The fox whose leg he had injured was among them, glaring at him with open hostility. The creature's eyes suddenly began radiating an eerie light. The party members who had just arrived recoiled in terror. Even the S-rank hero Yoon Ju-yun froze beneath its gaze. The creature's sinister eyes dragged her into a state of overwhelming fear. In the next instant, Du-jun reached out and blocked Ju-yun's vision. Standing behind her, he warned, don't let them bewitch you. Their eyes can paralyze the mind. A single moment of eye contact is enough to overwhelm even an S-rank hero. You've already been affected. So close your eyes and rest for a moment. Du-jun gathered his power, coating the sword in his hand with blazing fire. He transformed the mana surrounding his body into flames and activated the kaleidoscope sword art. The instant the technique began, rings of flame and blazing fireballs formed above him. Kaleidoscope sword art. First form. Du-jun slowly raised the crimson blade and pointed it toward the massive pack. The flames covering the sword rapidly gathered at its tip, sensing the terrifying power. Every lynx demon fox bristled in fear. Guided by Dojin's mana, the fireball at the tip of his sword continued expanding. One party member exclaimed, "What kind of ability is that? It looks incredibly dangerous." Under the terrified dazes of the party, a fierce light appeared in Du-jun's eyes. The next instant, all the fire surrounding him erupted from the tip of his sword. A force powerful enough to destroy the world exploded to the pack of demon foxes. Before that overwhelming power, the fearsome creatures appeared utterly insignificant. Flames resembling molten lava tore through the forest and surged deep into the trees. Yoon Ju-yun and Young In-ju stared at the towering flames, too stunned to move. Ju-yun watched the devastation before her in horror. Seo Du-jun stood like a dividing line with everything in front of him reduced to scorched hearth. Countless lynx demon foxes lay across the burned ground. Cold sweat ran down the party members' faces as shock overwhelmed them. Ju Yen could hardly believe Du Jun possessed such terrifying power. Yet inside the burning forest, one weakened lynx demon fox had somehow survived. Du Jun slowly approached the badly injured lynx demon fox. The hostility in its eyes had not faded, and it released another wave of mind-paralyzing power. However, Du Jun's sword crossed its neck in the next instant, sending the creature's head tumbling to the ground. Du Jin said coldly, "A creature this insignificant still dares to use that power against me. I'll be taking your eyes now. They should prove useful later." After eliminating the demon foxes, Dojin's party began retracing their route. Every member of the party looked excited. The battle they had witnessed was so unbelievable that it had far exceeded the limits of ordinary humans. Some of them even suspected that Dojin had already surpassed Alphonse. He might have reached the same level as Kane, the world's strongest hero. Just then, bubbling sounds came from a nearby lake. A horde of zombies emerged from the water, growling as they dragged themselves onto the shore. One party member remarked, "What a bunch of mindless undead." The zombies suddenly charged toward the group. With a heavy thud, Dojon's fist slammed into the side of one zombie's face. Its head exploded beneath the overwhelming force. Dojon continued advancing, striking with his fists and palms. The undead collapsed one after another, each body left with massive holes torn through it. Severed heads and shattered torsos flew through the air. Finally, Dujin crushed the last remaining zombie beneath his foot. The party was once again stunned by the completely one-sided battle. Yoon Ju-hyun quickly caught up with Dojin. Her voice pulled him out of his battle-ready state. "Where did you earn that sword technique you used earlier?" Dujin realized that she was asking about the kaleidoscope sword art. He looked at Ju Yen. "Do you want to learn it too?" Her eyes lit up. "Can I really learn it?" Dujin thought that such a destructive technique had little use in this relatively peaceful world. He replied, "Even if you learned it now, what would you use it for?" Juyin snapped. "If you don't want to teach me, just say so." She assumed Dojin was looking down on her. Their eyes suddenly met, causing Juyin to freeze for a moment. She turned her face away and muttered, "So I don't even mean that much to you." Unable to stomach any more of their flirting, Young In-ju interrupted them. "That's enough. Let's leave through the rift exit ahead." The party began walking toward the rift they had originally entered through. Young In-ju glanced back and silently acknowledged that Du Jin was the reason everyone had survived without injury. She promised herself that she would become stronger before their next mission. Once everyone else had passed through, In-ju stepped into the rift exit. The moment she emerged, she heard someone ahead shout, "Are you one of those island country bastards?" The entire party froze and stared ahead. In-ju pushed through the crowd, only to stop in astonishment at the sight before her. Du-jun was holding the red-faced Yun Ju-yun protectively in his arms. A man holding a butcher's blade stood before them. He was the S-rank hero, Ryoma Takashi, the former gangster who now led the Imperial Guild. Ryoma Takashi glared arrogantly at Dojin and said, "Stay out of my way, brat. Get lost before I crush you like trash." Dojin replied, "Are you calling yourself trash?" Hearing Dojin suddenly respond in Japanese, Ju-yun asked in surprise, "How do you know Japanese?" Dojin was equally confused and guessed that the original So Dojin must have studied the language. Ryoma Takashi flew into a rage and shouted, "What did you say, you damn bastard?" One of his henchmen shouted, "How dare you disrespect our boss? Do you even know who he is?" Dujin cut him off. "There's no need. I'm not interested." All three S-rank heroes released their powerful auras and confronted one another. Young In-ju felt a trace of fear. Ryoma Takashi had held Japan's top hero ranking for years and was infamous for his violent arrogance. She hurried between the two sides and tried to prevent the conflict from escalating. However, a vulgar insult from the other side stopped In-ju in her tracks. One of her party members shouted, "What are you bastards saying? How dare you insult our guildmaster?" In-ju shouted over them, "Everyone, shut up." She turned toward Ryoma Takashi and introduced herself. Hoping to prevent a fight, Ryoma Takashi merely sneered. "What's wrong? Do you women need a man to protect you too?" He then reached out and grabbed for Ju-yun's arm. Ryo-jun stepped forward, knocked his hand aside, and pulled Ju-yun behind him. Ryoma Takashi suddenly punched Du-jun directly in the face. Pulling back his fist, he said arrogantly, "I'm going to kill you eventually, brat. For now, stay out of my way," Du-jun replied coldly. "Was that a deliberate challenge? Fine. I accept." Du-jun's entire body exploded into motion. His fist drove straight into the side of Ryoma Takashi's face. With a thunderous impact, Ryoma Takashi flew backward toward his two henchmen. The two men stared in terror. Unable to believe what they had just witnessed, Do-jun told everyone to step back. Since they attacked first, this should count as self-defense. Seeing the panic on his guild members' faces, Ryoma Takashi ordered them to stand down. This is a one-on-one duel. You weaklings need to stay out of it. Ryoma Takashi removed his shirt, and crimson mana erupted from his body. Yoon Ju-yeon was not worried about Dojin at all. She merely prayed that he would not kill too many people. However, in the next instant, Ryoma Takashi was already pinned beneath Dojin's foot, stunning both sides. Being stepped on in front of everyone filled Ryoma with unbearable humiliation. He pushed off the ground with all his strength and quickly escaped from beneath Do-jun's foot. Their brief exchange filled him with doubt. Why was this man so powerful, and who exactly was he? The terrifying presence Do-jun displayed was completely different from the intelligence Ryoma had received. The moment Dojin suddenly raised his head, Ryoma's instincts screamed in warning. Cold sweat poured down Ryoma's body as overwhelming anxiety consumed him. He turned in panic and attempted to flee. However, Dojin flashed in front of him and blocked his path. Dojin stared at him with icy eyes and asked, "Did someone send you after me? I think I already know who it was." Under Ryoma's terrified gaze, Dojin gently placed a hand on top of his head. Dojin's fingers slowly tightened as he warned, "I never spare anyone who shows hostility toward me." His grip continued growing stronger, and a sickening creak came from Ryoma's skull. With a dull impact, the overwhelming force tore through one of Ryoma's vital points. Everyone present was stunned by what they had witnessed. Under their horrified dazes, Ryoma Takashi collapsed helplessly to the ground. Young Inju exclaimed that this was not a duel at all, but a completely one-sided beating. Dojin raised his foot and prepared to crush Ryoma's head. Realizing what was about to happen, Inju grabbed Ju-yeon's sleeve and urged her to stop him. Ju-yeon quickly reacted and called out to Do-jin. She grabbed Do-jin and tried to pull him away as she warned, "If this continues, the situation will become impossible to contain." She continued, "I've met plenty of bastards like him, but you still shouldn't kill him. There's no reason to bring more trouble upon yourself because of someone like this." Ju-yeon and Inju continued pulling Dojin back as they pleaded with him. Inju seized the opportunity and shouted at the Imperial Guild members, "Hurry up and surrender." The guild members dropped to their knees without hesitation. However, Do-jun spoke again. "If kneeling is enough to earn forgiveness, then you're getting off far too easily. Put your foreheads against the ground." The Imperial Guild members immediately pressed their foreheads to the ground and began bowing repeatedly. Yoo-jun asked coldly, "When you make a serious mistake, aren't you supposed to cut off a finger?" His words made them tremble uncontrollably as they continued bowing and begging for forgiveness. After the incident, inside the Brazilian Hero Association headquarters, an official carefully reviewed the newly submitted incident report. He then looked up at Yoon Ju-yeon and Young In-ju. Although his expression remained calm, he could hardly believe what he had read. An S-rank hero and guildmaster had been critically injured by a man whose official records still classified him as an ordinary civilian. Ryoma Takashi's injuries were so severe that they could not be fully healed, making the outcome almost impossible to believe. Brazilian authorities had originally hoped that South Korea and Japan would work together to seal the rift in the mountains. After the conflict, however, the official stated that Brazil would not interfere in the dispute between the two countries' heroes. The matter would be handed over to the South Korean and Japanese hero associations. After questioning the two women about the incident, the official picked up the report again. He asked, "Who is this SEO Dojin mentioned throughout the report, and why isn't he here?" Ju-yeon answered calmly. So Dojin already took his luggage and left for another location. Meanwhile, inside a hospital, Ryoma Takashi lay covered in bandages, staring in terror at the person before him. Dojin stood beside the hospital bed, holding a bouquet of flowers. Dojin said calmly, "I came to pay you a formal visit today." He then took out a round object resembling an eyeball. The moment the eyeball touched Ryoma's forehead, it began emitting a faint red glow. "All right. Now tell me everything you know about this." Ryoma Takashi trembled uncontrollably in the hospital bed. After a brief silence, he finally began revealing the truth. Under the influence of that strange power, he seemed like a completely different person. Once Do-jin learned what had happened, he turned and left the hospital room. Even from the hallway, he could still hear Ryoma's trembling voice. Not long afterward, major media outlets began reporting that So Do-jun had completely crushed Ryoma Takashi. Even Na Tae-won, chairman of the Korean Hero Association, was amazed by the explosive news. Reports about So Do-jun seemed to appear almost every day. The vice chairman asked whether the Japanese Hero Association had truly abandoned its investigation. Na Tae-won explained that Ryoma, the injured party, had personally admitted the entire incident was his own fault. Even so, the vice chairman found it difficult to believe. He was certain some major secret was being deliberately buried. At this rate, Seo Dojin might eventually change the entire balance of power among the world's heroes. Meanwhile, only one day remained before Brazil's rift sealing operation began. Heroes from around the world had already arrived and completed their final preparations. The international teams also used the opportunity to exchange information. They shared their battle plans while Brazil held a special mobilization event to raise morale before the operation. However, the true center of attention was naturally Seo Dojin. Nearly everyone at the event gathered around him and tried to start a conversation. After all, Dojin had just beaten Imperial Guildmaster, an S-rank hero Ryoma Takashi, without giving him any chance to fight back. Compared to him, even Young In-ju and Yoon Ju-yeon were receiving surprisingly little attention. In-ju soon noticed that Ju-yeon seemed unusually depressed and wondered what was bothering her. Following her gaze, In-ju noticed that another woman was now standing beside Do-jin. The two striking figures somehow looked surprisingly good together. The woman was Valoria, an S-rank hero from country M and the #1 hero in the world rankings. In-ju immediately understood and gave Ju-yeon a quick pat. Realizing why her friend looked so miserable, she urged Ju-yeon to go over there. At that moment, Do-jun seemed to notice something as well. Ju-yeon awkwardly began walking toward him. A faint blush had spread across her cheeks. The sight brought a small smile to Do-jin's face. Laloria took the hint and stepped away. See you next time, Kazal. The unfamiliar name immediately caught Ju-yeon's attention. Who is Kazal? When she realized Laloria had been referring to Do-jin, she became even more curious. Why do you have another English name? Dojin answered calmly. That was my old name. His answer only made Ju-yeon even more curious. Had he lived overseas before? If so, why was there no record of it? And why had she never heard the name Kaizo before? Meanwhile, someone nearby was silently watching them. Kang Young-pyo glared at Dojin and cursed inwardly. Ryoma Takashi was useless if he could not even handle someone like this. In the end, Young-pyo would have to deal with Dojin himself. Just then, part of their conversation caught his attention. Ju-young warned Dojin seriously. I know how strong you are, but your enemies may not confront you directly. Ryoma also has several S-rank heroes among his friends. Before she could finish, Dojin interrupted. They're probably just cowards like him who only know how to bluff. If that's all they are, there's nothing to fear. The moment he finished speaking, Dojin suddenly looked back at Kang Young-pyo. That cold gaze and contemptuous tone instantly set Young-pyo into a rage. A red glow appeared in his eyes as he screamed inwardly, you damn bastard. I'll kill you with my own hands. Before long, night completely covered the area. Young In-ju stared ahead in amazement. I've never seen anything like this before. Thick, black energy completely surrounded the entrance to the rift. However, her teammates remained confident. Their party had 2 S-rank heroes with them. Their confidence eased some of In-ju's anxiety. With that much strength on their side, nothing should go wrong. She immediately gave the order. Everyone, move out. However, even Dojin suddenly broke into a cold sweat. The mana concentration around them was rising at an incredible rate. Meanwhile, the mysterious humanoid monster hiding in the shadows stared at the technological device in its hand. The mana concentration is about to cross the critical threshold. A cold smile appeared on its face. Fear is about to spread. It would be more convenient if all of them died here. As those words left its mouth, crushing pressure suddenly descended upon everyone. Dojin immediately realized something was wrong. The mana here was abnormally dense. Even compared to the forest they had explored earlier, seeing the unusually serious look on Do-jun's face made Ju-yeon tense as well. Something was definitely wrong inside this rift. After Ju-yeon's party entered the rift, Young In-ju immediately ordered everyone into battle formation. She then turned toward Dojin behind them and explained their plan for the operation. With everyone on full alert, the party continued deeper into the rift. Meanwhile, as So Do-jun's party entered the Santaerum rift, A joint raid team from 3 countries had been deployed to Manaus, one of the largest cities in northern Brazil's rift zone. However, the team came under a devastating attack almost immediately. Countless paper-thin wings vibrated violently through the air. The attackers were a massive swarm of C-rank monsters known as killer bees. The joint raid team was almost completely helpless against the swarm. Even South Korea's S-rank hero, Go Hae-yeol, was shocked by what he saw. Suddenly, a figure fell from the sky and crashed directly in front of him. A trace of fear entered Go Hae-yeol's heart. These monsters were capable of overwhelming even A-rank heroes with terrifying ease. In an instant, a killer bee suddenly appeared directly in front of Go Hae-yeol. Its venomous stinger shot toward him like a poisoned dagger. Go Hae-yeol reacted immediately and drove a powerful fist into the monster, yet the blow barely affected it. Under normal circumstances, a C-rank monster should have been torn apart by a single punch from him. The problem had begun the moment everyone entered this area. Some unknown force seemed to be suppressing their abilities, preventing them from using their full strength. Elsewhere, Jang In-ju instantly dodged an enormous axe swinging toward her. A large group of orcs had suddenly appeared before the party. Monsters they could normally kill with ease had somehow become unbelievably powerful. Several team members coordinated perfectly and poured nearly all their strength into a combined attack. Yet all they managed to leave was a shallow mark on the orc's forehead. The enraged orc hurled its massive axe, nearly killing one of the heroes on the spot. Fortunately, Yoon-ju grabbed him in time and pulled him away from the deadly strike. Even an A-rank hero looked frighteningly powerless against these monsters. Another orc swung its enormous axe directly at Juyeon. However, she easily avoided the attack with her incredible speed. After all, Juyeon ranked second among South Korean heroes in speed. In a single instant, she appeared behind the orc. Tremendous power erupted from her slender leg as she kicked the monster to the ground. Another orc immediately swung a bone club at her. The attack missed Juyeon completely and smashed directly into its own companion's head. Cold sweat instantly covered the orc's body. Juyeon seized the opportunity and flashed behind it. Another powerful kick sent the creature flying. Seeing this, the leading orc threw back its head and roared. Before the roar could even finish, Dojin shattered its tusk with a single punch. After Dojin killed the final orc, the bodies scattered across the ground suddenly caught his attention. Faint black ripples were covering every corpse, so subtle that they were almost impossible to notice. Those black ripples were the true reason the monsters had become so powerful. Dugan quietly examined the bodies. A question immediately entered his mind. Why is dark mana present here against monsters strengthened by dark mana? Even the full power of an A-rank hero seemed frighteningly weak. One mistake could easily cost them their lives. A long-haired hero waited until his teammates temporarily held the monster back. He then unleashed his strongest attack, yet even that failed to leave a single wound. Before anyone could recover from the shock, a swamp ghoul suddenly launched another attack. The strike looked almost ordinary, yet its claws tore through the hero's combat suits with ease. No one could understand why these normally weak monsters had become so terrifying. As the long-haired hero froze in fear, another swamp ghoul suddenly appeared behind him. Fortunately, young In-ju arrived in time and tore through the monster's body. Several sharp sounds immediately cut through the air. Multiple attacks slashed into the swamp ghoul at once. After landing, In-ju stared at the corpses surrounding her in disbelief. Even ordinary swamp ghouls had become this powerful. There was clearly something abnormal about this rift. Even worse, Brazilian intelligence reported that the same phenomenon was occurring throughout the country. Meanwhile, the situation inside the Manaus rift had become far more disastrous. South Korea's S-rank hero, Go Hae-yeol, was desperately fleeing for his life. Every teammate who had entered the rift with him was already dead. Even Alvaro, one of Brazil's strongest heroes, and David from France had been killed. And the one responsible for everything was a being known as Velcro. Elsewhere, Dojin revealed the same name to Yoon-ju. Velcro. He explained that all of these monsters were being controlled by Velcro. Their bodies had also been infused with dark mana, making them far more dangerous than normal. Dark mana? Juyeon stared curiously at the ghost-like black energy surrounding the monsters. Was that really the reason they had become so powerful? Juyeon had only heard the word mana in video games before. Did it actually work the same way? Allowing someone to use supernatural abilities? Do-jun confirmed her suspicion. Exactly. The fundamental difference between ordinary people and heroes is mana. Before he could continue, A swamp ghoul opened its fang-filled mouth and lunged straight at him. The next instant, overwhelming force tore completely through the creature's body. Ju Yun's question made Dojin realize something important. The people of this world had never truly understood the concept of mana. Dujan could not help remarking, "This world has been peaceful for far too long. But now, that peace probably won't last much longer." The moment he finished speaking, his gaze suddenly sharpened. His right fist shot forward, followed immediately by his left. He then drove his foot down into the monster's body. In seconds, several swamp ghouls collapsed beneath his relentless attacks. With a thunderous blast, their bodies exploded into pieces. The party members whose attacks had barely worked moments earlier could only stare in disbelief. Afterward, Dujan warned everyone to slow down and guided them around the most dangerous areas. Under his direction, the party eventually located Velcro's nest. Young Inju immediately ordered everyone to remain on high alert. However, Dujun interrupted her before she could finish. "There's no need. They're the ones in danger now." Flames immediately erupted across his palm. The next instant, blazing fire shot toward the monsters trapped among the webs. Terrifying flames exploded throughout the swarm. Any creature infused with Velcro's dark mana could be controlled like a puppet, so destroying all of them was the safest option. Dojin then declared that he would deal with the final boss by himself. His words left the entire party stunned once again. After all, they had endured one brutal battle after another just to make it this far. They had always known Dojin was powerful, but what he was displaying now seemed far beyond normal human limits. Even the S-rank hero Yoon Ju-yeon could not help patting him on the shoulder. She jokingly asked, "Did you unlock New Game Plus or some kind of hidden second life?" Dojin merely smiled. In a way, she was not entirely wrong. In his previous life, he had been the strongest sword god in his entire world. However, he offered no explanation and instead asked Young In-ju where the nearest rift was. After hearing the answer, he stunned everyone again. "I'm going to clear every rift around here before the day ends." The other members of the party were already exhausted. But as long as Dujun eliminated Velcro first, the rest of their problems would become much easier to handle. With that, he turned and raced toward the nearest rift alone. Everyone watched his figure rapidly disappear into the distance. One of them finally sighed. "What the hell is that guy? How does he still have this much energy?" It did not take long for Dojin to find Velcro lurking near the rift. Sensing his approach, Velcro released a deafening roar. In the next instant, Dojin was already airborne. Above it, he brought his sword down with tremendous force. However, the strike barely damaged Velcro and only enraged it further. Velcro opened its mouth and fired a razor-sharp web toward him. Dojin dodged the attack and simultaneously unleashed several waves of sword energy. In an instant, the attack sliced Velcro cleanly in half as its massive body crashed toward the ground. Dojin slowly exhaled. Because he had already absorbed dark mana during his earlier training, he felt almost no fatigue. After finishing Velcro, Dojin immediately returned to the party. Everyone stared in disbelief. Dojin had eliminated Velcro in less than half an hour. Judging by his condition, the entire fight had barely exhausted him. Dojin told everyone that the nearby monsters had been completely cleared, and they could finally rest safely. As night fell, the party members began handling their respective tasks. Dojin placed the leftover monster meat over the campfire. One of the party members curiously walked over. He said he wanted to try some of the monster meat himself. Dojin casually handed him a piece. The man secretly wondered whether eating monster meat was somehow responsible for Dojin's incredible strength. Even if he was wrong, there was no real harm in trying it. Before long, several party members were eagerly chewing on the grilled monster meat. Dojin quietly watched them. The meat had no special effects, but he did not dislike their determination to become stronger. So he decided to give them a small gift. A trace of mana flowed from Dojin into their bodies, leaving everyone thrilled as a sudden surge of strength spread through them. Seeing their reactions, a faint smile appeared on Dojin's face. Afterward, Young In-ju explained that continuing forward would eventually lead them to the core of the rift. However, everyone's backpacks were already completely full, so she suggested returning first. Yoon Ju-yeon agreed. After all the fighting they had endured, the entire party was physically and mentally exhausted. Dojin had originally planned to delay the rift's closure for as long as possible so he could continue gathering valuable monster materials. Items like blue crocodile hearts could only be found in Brazil. However, the appearance of dark mana completely changed his plans. It was clearly a dangerous sign. Du could also sense that this dark mana was far more unusual than it first appeared. He emptied the magic crystals from his backpack and told Ju Yan's party to take the loop back to the hotel. As for Du Jun, he intended to close the rift completely. With that, he raced deeper into the rift alone. Even terrifying ghouls, strengthened by powerful dark mana, were reduced to pieces beneath Dojin's blade. After slaughtering the monsters before him, Dojin reached into one of their remains. He soon pulled out a faintly glowing red magic crystal. Meanwhile, Yoon Ju Yun's party was discussing Du Jun on their way back. Young In Ju asked anxiously, "Will Mr. So really be alright by himself?" Ju Yun sighed. "Did you see how he shot off like a bullet after saying goodbye? He's obviously still hiding plenty of strength." Seeing her expression, In Ju mistakenly assumed Ju Yun was worried about Dojin. In reality, Ju Yun simply felt awkward whenever she remembered that both she and Dojin were classified as S-rank heroes. After all, there was probably not a single S-rank hero in the world who could truly match him. At that moment, Du Jun leaped through the air and appeared directly in front of a dark orc. His blade flashed once and sliced straight through the monster's skull. Two more orcs immediately swung their massive axes toward him. Du Jun vanished from their attack path in an instant. At the same time, the eternal flame erupted across his palm. The next second, he hurled a blazing fireball toward them. Their massive bodies suddenly looked insignificant before its overwhelming power. Moments later, both orcs collapsed, their valuable materials becoming yet another addition to Dojin's growing haul. No matter how powerful these monsters became, none of them could withstand even one strike from his sword. Before long, Du Jun obtained another blue crocodile heart. He placed it inside a glass container and carefully sealed it as more monster corpses piled up around him. Even Du Jun lost track of how many materials and magic crystals he had collected. He packed everything into his bag and continued advancing toward the deepest part of the rift. Meanwhile, inside the Brazilian Hero Association's intelligence room, every staff member stared at the screen. In disbelief, the Santarém rift was rapidly disappearing. The room erupted in excitement because this meant the rift had finally been closed. However, when they checked which team had completed the operation, they discovered that the assigned party had returned 10 minutes earlier. Everyone froze in confusion, unable to understand what had happened inside the rift. In fact, 10 minutes earlier, Dojin had encountered a two-headed ogre. It was a monster that had rapidly evolved after absorbing dark mana. Dojin dodged one of its devastating stops and immediately spotted the rift core behind it. Wanting to close the rift as quickly as possible, he raised his sword. Scorching flames instantly wrapped around the entire blade. Kaleidoscope sword art. Second form, breath of fire. The blazing sword slashed directly into the two-headed ogre's arm. The monster immediately clutched its torn flesh and screamed in agony. Du Jun leaped into the air again and brought his sword down across its chest. The enraged ogre swung one massive arm toward him. Du Jun dodged and simultaneously raised his sword above his head. The flame-covered blade came down once again. In an instant, countless sword slashes crossed through the air like a massive web. Even the shock wave shattered the surrounding trees and boulders. Surprisingly, the two-headed ogre leaped into the air and avoided the entire attack. It clasped both hands together and smashed them down toward Dojin. He slipped aside and severed one of its lower legs with a single slash. As both heads screamed in agony, Du Jun unleashed a massive cross-shaped slash. The once powerful two-headed ogre was instantly sliced into pieces, collapsing like a dismantled puppet. After killing it, Du Jun sheathed his sword and approached the rift core. However, the concentration of dark mana around the core was much lower than he expected. That meant if the dark mana was not leaking from the core, it had to be coming from an outside source. In other words, someone was deliberately injecting dark mana into these rifts. But producing this much dark mana would require at least an undead lord or an imperial lich. If creatures of that level were actually on Earth, most living beings here should have already been transformed into undead. More importantly, if the dark mana truly came from an outside source, simply closing the rift would solve nothing. After thinking for a moment, Dojin slammed his fist directly into the rift core. A crack instantly spread across the surface of the swirling energy. The next second, the entire core exploded. Meanwhile, inside the Brazilian Hero Association headquarters, the chairman stared at the latest report with trembling hands. Its contents were almost impossible to believe. One multinational raid team had been nearly wiped out with only a single S-rank hero surviving. Yet another party had suffered no casualties at all and had even managed to close its rift. Even worse, reports from the front lines showed that most of the other raid teams had already failed. Every team had been assigned at least one S-rank hero, yet the results were still catastrophic. That made Yoon Ju-yeon's party the only team currently credited with successfully closing a rift. Realizing something was strange, the chairman immediately asked his assistant, "Where is So Dojin right now?" When he heard that Dojin would soon arrive at headquarters, he immediately stood up and prepared to meet him personally. In reality, after Young In-ju and Yoon Ju-hyun left with the party, Dojin had not only closed the first rift by himself but had already entered a second one. The core of that second rift was now hidden beneath the lake directly below him. Back at the Brazilian Hero Association headquarters, Chairman Lopez approached Yoon Ju-yeon and questioned her about what had happened inside the rift zone. Ju-yeon was surprised to hear that another rift had already been closed, but considering Dojin's strength she knew it was entirely possible. Even so, Lopez found it difficult to believe that a single person could close an entire rift alone. He fell silent for a moment. Then he said gravely, "This information is classified, but you would learn about it sooner or later. S-rank heroes have already died inside the rift zone." Ju-yeon had already expected something like this. Without So Dojin, she probably would have died inside as well. So she told Chairman Lopez everything that had happened. After hearing the full story, Lopez could no longer hide his despair. The monster strengthened by dark mana had become powerful enough to surpass S-rank heroes. And according to Ju-yeon, So Do-jun's strength might already exceed the entire existing hero ranking system. Yet Lopez was still confused. Hero units had dealt with the lizard hunt incident before, but nothing like this had ever happened. Before Lopez could finish, Yoon Ju-yeon immediately corrected him. "The rift zone he dealt with before was completely different from what we experienced, so you need to take this seriously." For now, the only way to distinguish these abnormal rifts was by their different colors. Hearing this, Chairman Lopez immediately ordered a full investigation of every gate in the country. After the conversation ended, Ju-yeon calmly left the room. The moment she stepped outside, however, she pulled out her phone and made a call. On the other end was Na Tae-won, chairman of the Korean Hero Association. Ju-yeon explained everything she had discovered about dark mana and what had happened inside the rift. The situation had become far too serious for her to ignore. With the current strength of S-rank heroes, fighting monsters empowered by dark mana would already be extremely difficult. And if an elite or boss-level monster received the same enhancement, the consequences could be disastrous. They needed to prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, Dojin had already reached the river near the third rift zone. When a region contained rivers, lakes, and islands together, there was roughly a 50% chance that the rift opening would be underwater. That made clearing it quickly far more troublesome because very few heroes could fight at full strength underwater. Even worldwide, powerful heroes who specialized in underwater combat were extremely rare. The most famous was Ivan Roper. After awakening as a hero, his unique ability, underwater breathing, made him one of the 3 highest valued heroes in the world. The moment Dojin sank beneath the surface, he immediately sensed an overwhelming concentration of dark mana. Without hesitation, he dove deeper underwater. He began swimming directly toward the source of the dark mana. The farther he went, the darker his surroundings became. Yet despite moving through the water, not a single drop touched his body. A thin mana barrier completely surrounded him. By maintaining a membrane-like barrier over his body, Dojin could isolate himself from the surrounding environment, whether underwater or surrounded by flames. Suddenly, an enormous water serpent over 60 feet long shot toward him through the darkness. It was an Arachon, a common underwater monster from the ruined world Dojin once lived in. It had no especially powerful abilities, but hunted like a typical serpent, moving rapidly through the water before coiling around its prey, crushing their bones, and swallowing them whole. Sensing the dark mana inside the Arachon, Dojin suddenly unleashed his strength. With a violent burst, he tore straight through its coils. As pieces of the Arachon drifted through the water, Dojin looked at them with disgust. Just then, nearby piranhas infused with dark mana immediately caught the scent of blood. The swarm rushed toward the Aracon's remains and began tearing into them. Moments later, their attention shifted toward Dojin. It only took him seconds to punch the piranha-like monsters to death. But as he continued killing every creature that charged toward him, the surrounding water became increasingly gruesome. Since the battle was taking place underwater, monster corpses drifted everywhere around him, and the growing scent of blood only attracted even more monsters. Killing them required almost no effort, but fighting endlessly would only waste time. So Dojin suddenly changed direction and broke free from the swarm. As he accelerated through the water, he finally discovered the true source of the dark mana. At first glance, it resembled a massive flatfish. Its head contained only one grotesque purple eye with a narrow yellow slit pupil at the center. The moment Dojin saw it, a smile appeared on his face. He never expected to find an acromos here. Even in the ruined world of his previous life, acromos were unbelievably rare, and everyone who obtained their power eventually became a legendary figure. There was no chance Dojin would let an opportunity like this slip away. At that moment, the acromos' narrow eye shifted ever so slightly. Dojin immediately understood what it was planning without hesitation. He reached straight toward the creature. But the next second, a surge of black power erupted and pinned him in place. As the acromos opened its mouth, spatial distortions resembling a rift began spreading around it. Faced with this situation, Dojin could not afford to attack recklessly. If he simply killed the acromos, he would lose any chance of obtaining its spatial ability. His only option was to suppress it with pure mana. The next instant, an overwhelming amount of mana erupted from his body. The weaker fish monsters nearby were instantly torn apart. However, at this rate, Dojin's current mana reserves would eventually be overwhelmed by the acromos. If it swallowed him into its subspace, death would be almost guaranteed. So when his mana was nearly exhausted, Dojin made a dangerous decision. He began absorbing the dark mana filling the deep water. If his only alternative was being trapped inside the Acromesa subspace until he died, then he would rather gamble everything. Even having his body explode was better than waiting helplessly for death. Cold, coarse, polluted, dark mana poured into his body, temporarily allowing him to suppress the acromos. But at that moment, a thin stream of blood ran from his nose. Dojin felt as though his entire body could burst apart at any second. His body in the ruined world could absorb almost limitless mana, but Seo Dojin's current body was far more fragile. This body had already reached the maximum amount of mana it could withstand. Even as his consciousness began fading, Dojin decided to risk everything. Suddenly, the previously calm surface of the lake began violently shaking with a thunderous explosion. An enormous pillar of water shot into the sky. As the water came crashing back down, Dojin and the strange fish emerged together. Dojin stared in surprise at the strange energy now fluctuating around his hand. It was the acromos's power over subspace. Dojin had successfully absorbed the acromos's power completely. Not only did it dramatically increase the amount of mana his current body could contain, it also granted him dimensional power capable of traveling between different worlds. He could now create a complete subspace and freely alter its size and shape. This was by far the greatest reward Dojin had gained from the entire operation. He stood up and stored both his backpack and sword inside the subspace. In fact, Dojin had already hunted countless monsters before discovering the acromos. And during their struggle, the remaining underwater monsters had all been torn apart by the violent energy. As a result, almost nothing living remained inside the rift. Meanwhile, inside the Korean Hero Association headquarters, Deputy Director Min Hong-ki was reporting the newly released list of hero casualties to Na Tae-won. After hearing the names, Na Tae-won sighed and closed his eyes, mourning the talented heroes who had been lost. Min Hong-ji then continued with a detailed report on the situation in Brazil. Learning that So Dojin had closed such a powerful rift completely on his own made Na Tae-won fall into thought. Dojin was even more extraordinary than he had imagined. Even so, Na Tae-won could not openly celebrate. After the Ryoma Takashi incident, So Dojin had become the center of worldwide attention, meaning everything he did now carried even greater consequences. Na Tae-won then asked about the rift zones back in South Korea. Min Hong-ji reported that there were currently no abnormalities. However, fearing the same sudden changes seen in Brazil, he had greatly increased permanent staffing around the rift zones and ordered non-stop surveillance. Na Tae-won approved of the decision. If even Min believed supposedly stable rifts could suddenly change, then they needed to prepare before disaster struck. Still, Na Tae-won remained somewhat worried about Dojin. Lopez was not the type to accept a loss quietly and might try to make things difficult for him. Min Hong-ji's expression became slightly awkward. His concern was actually the exact opposite. He was more worried that Chairman Lopez would end up getting thoroughly beaten down by Seo Dojin. The two men fell silent for a moment. Then Na Tae-won finally burst into laughter. You're right. So Do-jun has never been someone people can push around. At that very moment, Do-jun was doing exactly what Na Tae-won and Min Hong-ji had feared, putting Chairman Lopez under enormous pressure. Lopez shouted at the three people before him. Isn't your demand a little too unreasonable? Dojin immediately stood up. If you think my terms are unreasonable, then there's nothing left to discuss. He had barely taken 2 steps when Lopez hurriedly called him back. Wait. You're an S-rank hero. Don't you have some responsibility to protect civilians? Do-jun's expression instantly turned cold. I already closed 2 rifts by myself and now you want to lecture me about responsibility? Does your idea of responsibility mean demanding that others sacrifice themselves for free? Besides, what does Brazil's safety have to do with me? If South Korea's rift suddenly became like this, could you force every Brazilian hero to risk their lives protecting Korean civilians? Lopez swallowed hard. Every rift zone within roughly 300 miles of Santorum had become too dangerous to enter. Unless Brazil committed every S-rank hero currently gathered in the country, there was almost nothing they could do. Worse, if the rifts mutated again and the monster population exploded, Brazil itself could be destroyed. The thought alone was terrifying. No matter what it cost, they needed Dojin's strength. Yoon Ju-yen calmly spoke up. If the situation is really that serious, then the answer is simple. Just accept Dojin's terms. Compared to the survival of Brazil, is the money really that important? Lopez and the assistant beside him fell silent. A moment later, Lopez finally called out to Dojin. From now on, I'll pay you $50 million for every rift you close. Dojin finally smiled. You should have said that from the beginning. Then start by transferring the $100 million for the 2 rifts I already closed. Julian was slightly worried that if this deal became public, Do-jun might gain a reputation for greed. However, Brazil had no reason to reveal the agreement either. She then glanced back toward him. As she stared at Do-jun's firm expression and imposing figure, a faint blush unexpectedly spread across her cheeks. Meanwhile, Do-jin briefly closed his eyes and thought about the original So Do-jin. He silently promised, I'll build Un-young and Grandma the safest home in the world. That should be enough for you. Right? Later, inside a restaurant, Young and Ju asked whether Dojin wanted to accompany them to another rift, cutting into the steak on his plate. Dojin answered, if we want to maximize the profit, you can help me close 1 rift first. Then while you and the guild members rest, I'll go clear the second one alone. Of course, the reward for any rift we clear together will be divided equally among everyone who participates. That way, we can close up to 3 rifts in a single day. Hearing the plan, the members of the Violet Guild immediately became fired up. Do-jun then leaned close to Ju-yun's ear and whispered, don't push yourself before I arrive. Just focus on protecting your guild members. Ju-yun's face instantly turned bright red. Seeing how close the two had become, the others immediately began teasing them. Are those two actually dating? He was definitely giving Ju-yun some encouragement just now since there was still plenty of time left in the day. Do-jun soon entered another rift. Before long, a 15-meter monster resembling the one-eyed giant he had fought before appeared. However, this creature was far weaker. The moment its enormous fist came crashing down, Dojin flashed behind it. Before the monster could react, he gathered his strength and drove a devastating punch into its body. Surprisingly, the blow seemed to have almost no effect. Instead, it only enraged the monster even further. Dojin finally got a clear sense of just how durable the monster's body was. That made it the perfect target for a new technique he had been experimenting with. The one-eyed monster suddenly charged straight at him. But the moment it came within range, Dojin slammed a vicious roundhouse kick directly into its face. Black blood immediately sprayed from the creature's mouth. Veins bulged across its body as its rough skin turned red, almost as if it had been burned. Do-jun turned slightly and swept one hand through the air. A small subspace resembling a miniature rift instantly opened in front of his palm. The monster's incoming fist touched the subspace and was severed instantly. While the creature stood there in confusion, another subspace suddenly opened above its head. A severed section of its body crashed heavily to the ground. Subspace was incredibly powerful, but it came with serious limitations. Moving a living creature or a fast-moving object into it consumed more than 5 times the normal amount of mana and mental energy. Meanwhile, Brazil's Rift Monitoring Center received confirmation that the rift had been closed. Chairman Lopez stared at the monitor in disbelief. An entire rift zone had been cleared in only 8 hours, something almost unheard of. He already knew Dojin had closed 2 rifts alone, but actually seeing the result still felt unreal. Lopez immediately ordered his assistant to send the promised payment. Moments later, $50 million was transferred into Dojin's account. Paying money to solve a national crisis was certainly worthwhile. But at this rate, 24 rift zones would cost Brazil a staggering $1,200 million. Lopez bit his lower lip and finally made a decision. I'm not letting him take all of that money by himself. His assistant stared at him in shock. Chairman, are you saying we should delay his payment? Before he could finish, Lopez immediately shook his head. Gather every S-rank hero currently resting. Bring in as many A-rank heroes as possible too. We're forming a special raid force. CO Dojin isn't going to monopolize every rift. Tell them the team will receive a $10 million reward. From that moment on, Lopez decided to turn the operation into a competition. He wanted to see how Kyo Dojin compared against a multinational force of elite heroes, which side could close more rifts under Dojin's agreement with Brazil. Every rift he closed earned him the compensation they had promised. Brazil never tried to cheat him on the payments. However, the cost was becoming so enormous that the association gathered heroes from other countries to compete with him instead. After hearing Zhu Yan explain the situation, Dojin simply said, "The association isn't stupid. From one perspective, they are playing a little dirty. But money isn't that important to me anymore. I already have everything I promised the original CO Dojin. From now on, I'm going to do something I absolutely need to finish." And just as Brazil had hoped, the competition between the two sides dramatically accelerated the operation. Reports constantly poured into the Brazilian Hero Association. 3TM, CO Dojin, and the Violet Guild have closed Rift Zone B035. 5:10 p.m. The United Nations Special Operations Team has closed Rift Zone B012. One S-rank hero suffered minor injuries, 5 A-rank heroes were injured, and 2 other heroes were seriously wounded. 9:15 p.m. Rift Zone B037 has been closed. Raiding party? So Dojin allowed. Several days passed, and the monitoring staff at the Brazilian Hero Association were completely exhausted. They had barely slept during the entire operation, leaving almost everyone with heavy dark circles under their eyes. Fortunately, the rifts contaminated by dark mana were disappearing rapidly. However, that also meant fewer heroes were available to watch the remaining rifts. Those areas had to be monitored around the clock with specialized sensors and surveillance equipment because no one knew when another abnormality might occur. The staff had no choice but to remain on constant standby. Yet after only a few days, something none of them expected happened. Every rift confirmed to contain dark mana had been closed. Everyone in the monitoring room jumped out of their seats and erupted in cheers. It's finally over. Team leader Morrow rushed into Chairman Lopez's office and shouted excitedly, "Chairman, we've closed every dark mana rift in San Karim." Lopez finally released a long breath. The immediate crisis was over, and his body, tense for days, slowly began to relax. He was deeply relieved that every rift confirmed to contain dark mana had now been eliminated. Just as Morrow was about to leave, Lopez suddenly stopped him. "Wait. We still have more than 40 rift zones left under the original operation plan, but taking one day to rest won't hurt." Under Morrow's confused gaze, Lopez ordered him to prepare a banquet for all the heroes who had fought so hard during the containment operation. That night, heroes from countries around the world gathered at the banquet. The heroes at the banquet were dressed in expensive formal wear, making the entire event look incredibly grand. Zhang Yunju approached Chairman Lopez with Du Jin and Yoon Ju Hyun and greeted him. She then explained that their team was already preparing to return to South Korea, seeing how completely unconcerned Du Jin looked. Lopez immediately panicked and even began stumbling over his words. "But there are still plenty of rift zones left. Shouldn't you finish the operation before going home?" Inju calmly replied. "Our team was only assigned to the Santoram rift. As far as we're concerned, our mission is already complete." Lopez became even more desperate and awkwardly tried to convince Dojin to say. Inju could immediately tell exactly what he was thinking. She turned toward Dojin and asked what he wanted to do. Before he could answer, Lopez hurried over and asked to speak with him privately. As they walked, Lopez asked whether Dojin planned to stay. Dojin replied that he had already earned enough money and collected plenty of materials, so he was considering leaving. Watching the two men talk from a distance, Inju suddenly found the situation hilarious. Lopez looked like a man desperately trying to stop someone from breaking up with him. But what happened next made her grin strangely as she nudged the suddenly stiff Ju Yun. Ju Yun had walked over to a beautiful woman. In reality, he only wanted her help obtaining an invitation to the Golden Market. She agreed, but gave him one condition. Come visit my house once during the week before the Golden Market opens. Ju Yun froze the moment she heard that. Her imagination immediately began running wild. She was also curious why Du Jin wanted to visit the Golden Market so badly. At that moment, Gloria noticed Ju Yun watching them from nearby. She pulled out her phone and gestured for Dojin to take his time answering. Gloria explained that she genuinely wanted him to come, so she would give him the invitation first. Before long, Du Jin received a VIP membership card for the Golden Market. Just as he was about to thank Gloria, a voice suddenly came from nearby. What a beautiful sight! Some of the most gorgeous women from South Korea and overseas are all gathered in one place. The speaker was Kyung Pyo. He approached them with a mocking smile. Seo Dojin, you're quite impressive. You certainly know how to surround yourself with beautiful women. Dojin slowly turned toward him. Kyung Pyo was smiling, but there was no warmth in his eyes, and his voice was filled with sarcasm. The atmosphere immediately became tense. Then Young Pyo deliberately raised his voice so everyone nearby could hear him. Relax. I'm not here to do anything to you. I just wanted to introduce you to a friend. That friend was none other than Ryoma Takashi, the man Dojin had previously sent to the hospital. Ju Yun was stunned. She never expected Ryoma to be discharged so quickly. Lopez watched from nearby and immediately felt a headache coming on. He had deliberately left Ryoma off the guest list to prevent exactly this situation. Yet the man had shown up anyway. Ryoma Takashi glared furiously at Dojin. Dojin was the first to break the silence. Looks like you've recovered, Ryoma answered stiffly. Thanks to you, I learned quite a lesson. Sensing the growing tension, Lopez quickly stepped between them. Hero, Ryoma. I didn't invite you because I was worried the banquet might be too much for your recovery. But seeing you here looking well puts my mind at ease. There's a comfortable sofa over there. Why don't we sit down and talk? Seeing Lopez interfere, Kong Young Kyo immediately frowned. If he allowed this to continue, the old man would simply drag Ryoma away. Young Kyo quickly interrupted. His body may have recovered, but I'm sure he still feels uncomfortable about what happened. So maybe the greetings should end here. He should get some rest before those freshly healed wounds open again. Besides, you still haven't received an apology, have you? You were the one who got beaten. An apology is the least you deserve. Hearing Young Pyo's words, Ju Young and the others immediately looked furious. But the next moment, Du Jun suddenly appeared behind Ryoma and called out to him. Ryoma Takashi, don't you think that guy is trash too? The bizarre question left Kong Young Pyo completely confused. Then Ryoma slowly turned around and glared furiously at Young Pyo. Dojin continued, trash that contributes nothing to society should probably be disposed of. Don't you agree? Confused, Kong Young Pyo placed a hand on Ryoma Takashi's shoulder and asked what was wrong with him. But Ryoma only glared at him with even greater hostility. Then he suddenly pulled out his phone. As a recording began playing, everyone learned that Kong Young Pyo had conspired with Ryoma to murder Seo Do Jun. The expression on Young Pyo's face became almost impossible to describe. Heroes from around the world could hardly believe what they were hearing. A Korean S-rank hero had actually hired foreigners to kill another S-rank hero from his own country. Even worse, Gloria and Yoon Ju-yeon were mentioned several times in the recording. The disgusting comments were so explicit that both women looked furious and humiliated. Even Do Jun had not expected the Lynx Demon Fox's eye to work this well. He thought coldly, Kong Young Pyo, you chose the wrong enemy. From now on, I'll make you suffer until you beg for death. Feeling countless hostile eyes staring at him, Young Pyo began sweating heavily. Then something suddenly occurred to him. This was all Ryoma's fault. That stupid former gangster had ruined everything. Young Pyo immediately walked toward him. Afraid Ryoma would reveal even more, he hardened his hand into a blade. The next instant, his hand pierced straight through Ryoma's abdomen. Ryoma coughed up blood and collapsed backward. Taking advantage of the chaos, Young Pyo immediately fled the banquet. Lopez shouted, "Catch him." The sudden turn of events even made Ji in panic. However, Dujon simply watched young Kyo disappear into the distance. Ju Yeon asked in confusion, "Why didn't you stop him?" Dujon merely gave her a mysterious smile. Before long, everything that happened that night spread across the world. The global hero community erupted in shock, with South Korea and Japan suffering the greatest fallout. The hero associations and governments of both countries were forced to issue official statements promising a full investigation. After hearing the news, Hong Hee-ju exploded in rage. "Useless idiots. You couldn't even handle something this simple." She grabbed a golf club and smashed it against the table. Outside the room, Manager Lee listened to the destruction with sweat pouring down his face. Before long, Hee-ju ordered him inside. The room was already a complete wreck. After destroying countless decorations, Hee-ju had finally calmed down slightly. She looked at Manager Lee and asked coldly, "What's happening with Kenyon Pyo?" Manager Lee nervously reported, "Interpol and the World Hero Alliance are both hunting him, but there's still no report of his arrest." Hee-ju clenched her teeth. That piece of trash should have died a long time ago. She then asked, "What about our trail? Did you erase everything?" Manager Lee assured her that they had taken precautions. Personal accounts, contact records, and surveillance footage had all been secretly erased. Seeing that Hee-ju was still troubled, he cautiously asked, "Is there something else worrying you?" Instead of answering, Hee-ju threw a phone toward him. Manager Lee barely caught it and asked, "What is this phone?" Biting her thumb nervously, Hee-ju answered, "It's my private phone. Only my family knows this number. But just now, an unknown number sent me a frit. They said that if I refuse to cooperate, they'll release all the evidence." Manager Lee froze. Could it be Kong Young-pyo? What kind of cooperation does he want? Hee-ju suddenly jumped to her feet. "That doesn't matter right now. The real problem is whoever keeps coming after me." She hurled a ceramic ornament at Manager Lee. "You incompetent bastards, get out." As Manager Lee left the room, a terrifying thought entered his mind. If he continued following Hee-ju down this path, he would eventually be dragged down with her. He needed to find a way to save himself. But the moment he opened the door, he found a stern elderly man standing outside. Manager Lee immediately trembled. "Chairman," the old man stared at him with cold, piercing eyes. He was So Jiam-chul, the true head of T Group and one of the most powerful business figures in South Korea. The sight terrified Manager Lee. He immediately stepped aside and bowed deeply. So Jiam-chul did not even acknowledge him, leaving Manager Lee to hurry away in fear. Inside the office, Hong Hee-ju froze when she saw So Jiam-chul suddenly appear. She had barely managed to say, "Father," when So Jiam-chul slapped her hard across the face. Looking at Hee-ju's terrified expression, he asked coldly, "Do I look like a senile old fool to you?" Hee-ju tried to play dumb and claimed she had no idea what he meant, only to receive another slap. Seo Kong-chul stepped closer and snapped, "Did you really think I wouldn't find out that you sent Kong Young-pyo to kill Seo Do-jun? He carries my blood, and now he's an S-rank hero. Of course, I'm bringing him back into the Seo family." Seeing the look on Seo Jiam-chul's face, Hee-ju finally realized that everything was over. Seo Jiam-chul had already been irritated by P Group. One young Sung-ho had made them arrogant enough, but now it seemed fortune had finally turned in the Seo family's favor. He looked coldly at Hee-ju. "Now clean up the mess you created." Knowing that the family had effectively cast her aside, Hee-ju had nothing left to say. Meanwhile, aboard a flight back to South Korea, Do-jin calmly reflected on everything he had gained from the trip to Brazil. He had collected a fortune and countless valuable materials, but his greatest unexpected reward was the Acrimosi's some space ability. Just then, Ju Hyun leaned closer and asked curiously, "I still want to know. Why did you deliberately let Kong Yun-kyo escape?" Do-jun smiled faintly. "Because this way, things will become much more interesting." Not long afterward, in Seoul, South Korea, Eun-young sat happily eating a hamburger. Watching her enjoy herself brought an unconscious smile to Do-jun's face. In fact, on the very day he returned home, Do-jun discovered Grandma lying painfully in bed. He immediately asked why they had not gone to the hospital or even contacted him. Eun-young quickly explained, "Big brother, don't be angry. Grandma said we shouldn't waste money because you risked your life to earn it." Do-jon felt both touched and helpless. "If you're sick, you go to the hospital. You never need to worry about wasting money on that." He then leaned close to Grandma and told her that he had earned a huge amount of money in Brazil, so she never had to worry about medical expenses again. Hearing this, Grandma began crying with relief. Jun immediately transferred her to one of the best hospitals in South Korea. From then on, he and Young visited grandma every day, and eating hamburgers together gradually became part of their routine. Once everything at home was settled, Jun returned to the Gasan Hero Weapon Center. Choi Chul-kwon stared in amazement at the blue crocodile heart Jun brought him. He had never seen one preserved this perfectly. He excitedly explained that as long as nothing went wrong, the finished sword would be far more powerful than Jun expected. Jun immediately asked how much longer it would take. After estimating the remaining work, Choi answered, "If I start processing it now, about 3 weeks." Jun nodded and explained that he wanted something else made besides the sword. Choi agreed without hesitation. Jun then pulled out Velcro silk sacks and salivary glands from the bag containing the blue crocodile heart. Seeing the materials, Choi immediately asked, "Are you planning to make armor?" Equipment woven from Valkyra silk has incredible defense and is extremely comfortable to wear. Dojin shook his head. "It's not for me. I want to give it to my younger sister." The words younger sister made Choi pause. He asked curiously, "Armor made from Velcro materials is so valuable that even some rank heroes have to wait in line for it. Is your sister a hero too?" Jun immediately showed him a photo on his phone. "She isn't. So don't make it look like armor. Just turn it into normal clothing." Choi studied the photo and rubbed his chin, making Dojin ask, "Is there a problem?" Choi explained, "Kids grow quickly. Even if I make it now, she might outgrow it in a year or two." Dojin merely smiled. He reached into his bag again and pulled out a glass container filled with green liquid. "This is taro extract. Mix it into the fabric, and depending on the amount used, its elasticity can increase anywhere from 2 times to nearly 10 times. Choi said he had never heard of such a monster, but Tear Up was not a monster at all. It was simply a type of plant. Dojin offered no further explanation and turned away. "I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product." Choi remained completely puzzled. First, it had been the blood of a one-eyed giant, and now some unknown plant. He could not understand where Dojin had learned all this knowledge. Jun glanced back and smiled. Just think of it as New Game Plus. After leaving the weapons center, Jun met with Park Sung-uk, the former chief secretary of S Group. Once they sat down, Park asked directly, "What information are you looking for?" Jun answered, "Yoon-ju-yeon introduced me to you. She said you could help with what I'm planning to do next." Park asked what exactly Jun had in mind, then added, "As long as it doesn't break the law, I can help." Jun answered directly, "I'm planning to build a house." Park Sang-uk looked confused. "Shouldn't you be talking to a construction company about that? Or are you planning to build something unusual?" Jun replied calmly, "I want to build the safest house in the world." Park paused before asking about the location and budget. Jun answered, "Preferably somewhere in Seoul. My budget is around 500 billion won." The moment he heard the number, Park choked on his coffee and sprayed it everywhere. Unfortunately, Jun was sitting directly across from him. "Is this your first time handling a budget this large?" Park hurriedly denied it while pulling out a handkerchief and wiping the coffee from Jun's face. Sweating heavily, he explained, "With that kind of budget, you're not building a house anymore. You're building a castle." Jun actually considered it. A castle wouldn't be bad either. "Is this budget enough?" Park stared at him for several seconds before asking. "Hero Seo Dujon, do you know where the safest residence in South Korea is?" Dujon answered, "Probably Chairman Oh Yang-gun's home in Gangnam." Park nodded. "Correct. Chairman Oh's residence is currently valued at around 11 billion won. The actual land purchase and construction costs were only around 8 billion. With your budget, you could build something far more impressive. The real problem is finding land in Gangnam. Suitable property is nearly impossible to buy because no rift has ever appeared there." Jun fell silent for a moment. Then he replied, "Gangnam isn't actually the safest place. People only believe it is." Park became quiet as well. He would never have believed that statement from an ordinary person, but the man sitting across from him was South Korea's 8th S-rank hero. In reality, Gangnam's reputation for safety had largely been created by the media. The fact that no rift had appeared there yet was simply coincidence. The same had been true in the ruined world of Dojin's previous life. The only difference was the order in which the rifts appeared. Eventually, every region would experience one, so the location itself meant little to Dojin. He finally told Park, "I want to buy land in District 9. Park never expected that choice. District 9 had experienced a rift several years earlier, And even nearby Mappo had recently suffered another rift incident. He asked, curiously, is there a special reason you chose District 9? Dojin casually replied, probably because it's close to where I already live. Several weeks later, Dojin entered another rift. A monster suddenly noticed something behind it and turned around. But in the next instant, Dojin's sword had already sliced its body cleanly in half. He looked down at his new blade with obvious satisfaction. Its performance had far exceeded everything he expected. When Choi Cheol-gwon finished the weapon, he had proudly declared it the greatest masterpiece of his career. Since Dojin had provided all the valuable materials himself, Choi even offered to waive the crafting fee entirely, but Dojin had already transferred the payment. Choi insisted that the satisfaction of creating such a masterpiece was worth far more than money. Then he looked down at his phone and froze when he saw that Dojin had sent him 1 billion won. Do-jun simply said, I don't like owing people favors. After repeatedly testing the sword in battle, Do-jun felt it could easily be worth a 100 billion won. Thanks to Choi's work, clearing rifts had become even easier. After leaving the housing project to Park Sihanouk, Do-jun spent the next several weeks almost entirely inside rifts. Buying 3,000 square meters of land in District 9 could cost hundreds of billions of won, depending heavily on the landowners. Park had suggested reducing the size of the property, but Do-jun simply replied, I'll take care of the money. Even with his busy schedule, Do-jun still picked Eun-young up every evening. Sitting happily on his shoulders, Eun-young said, Big brother, Grandma will be discharged in a few days. Then remembering how busy he had been, she rested against his head. You don't have to come every day. I can take good care of Grandma for you. Her thoughtful words made Dojin fall silent for a moment. Just then, a suited man standing beside a sedan approached him. Are you Mr. So Dojin? Chairman So Jeom-kul sent us. He would like you to come with us. The moment Dojin heard those words, his expression turned cold. He gently lowered Eun-young from his shoulders and said, Close your eyes for a moment. Big brother will handle this. The next second, Do-jun brought his foot down with tremendous force. The luxury sedan meant to take him away was crushed and badly deformed on the spot. The suited man turned pale with fear and could barely form a complete sentence. Do-jun looked to him coldly. Get lost, and don't ever appear in front of me again. The man immediately turned and fled without looking back. Do-jun then explained to Eun-young that he had simply punished someone who tried to take her brother away. Eun-young immediately asked with complete seriousness, then if someone tries to take Eun-young away from Big Brother, can I punish them too? Do-jun paused before lifting her back into his arms. You don't need to worry about things like that. I'll take care of everything. Meanwhile, at a luxurious restaurant, Yoon Ji-yeon was telling Young In-ju about Do-jun's plan to buy land and build a new home. In-ju immediately asked, what about you? Shouldn't you move in next door to him? If you wait too long and someone else takes the best spot first, don't regret it later. Ju-yeon's imagination immediately began running wild. In-ju continued, it could actually happen. Besides, Do-jin isn't just temporarily moving. He probably plans to stay there for years. Ju-yeon fell silent. In-ju quietly watched her from across the table. After a long pause, In-ju suddenly said, maybe I should move next to Mr. Seo too. The moment she saw Ju-yeon tense up, she laughed. Look at that expression. I'm serious, but not for the reason you're imagining. After our trip to Brazil, I realized something. No matter where our guild goes, we need to choose the right path, and driving a sports car down the right highway sounds like a pretty good strategy. Ju-yeon stared at her helplessly. Are you seriously comparing Mr. So to a sports car? In-ju answered without hesitation. Obviously, you saw it yourself in Brazil. He isn't even on the same level as other S-rank heroes. I'm also considering building a mixed-use building there and using part of it as our guild headquarters. Ju-yeon thought the idea actually made sense, and the two quickly agreed on the plan. Meanwhile, inside the Korean Hero Association headquarters, Na-tae-wong asked, Hero So Do-jin, I heard you closed 9 rifts in only 2 weeks. That's no small number. I called you here because I wanted to understand why. Are you clearing them so aggressively? Because you expect South Korea to experience what happened in Brazil? Dojin glanced down at the massive payment that had just arrived on his phone. Then he calmly answered, for now, probably not. That only confused Na-tae-wom even more. If there was no immediate danger, why was Dojin hunting so relentlessly? Dojin smiled. I'm just a little short on money right now. Hearing an S-rank hero claim he was short on money left Na Tae-wang completely baffled. Dojin explained, I'm planning to build a house, and there's something related to the construction that I'd like your help with. From that day forward, the land surrounding Dojin's property suddenly became extremely active. Yoon Ju-yen and Young In-ju were among the first to make a move. Soon, even Na Tae-wang and members of the Violet Guild began getting involved. Powerful heroes and real estate investors somehow caught wind of the situation and started buying nearby property as well. Even so, Jiam Chul, the true head of T Group, believed the area was hiding an enormous business opportunity. He immediately ordered his assistant to find out exactly which property Dejun had purchased and secure as much surrounding land as possible. Before long, all kinds of rumors began spreading. As more money flooded into the area, land prices in District 9 quietly skyrocketed to astonishing levels. Fortunately, Dejun had already purchased more than 10,000 square meters of land before the price surge. Once the final construction plan was completed, Park Sang-uk stared at the blueprint in disbelief. This is the entire plan? You bought over 10,000 square meters of land, but the actual house is less than 500 square meters? What are you planning to do with all the remaining space? Dojun replied, I just need the house to be safe. Park Sang-uk took the blueprint from him and asked, so you're planning to build a wall around the entire property? If you don't need elaborate interiors, construction should be fairly quick. But what exactly will these facilities be used for? We'll need to declare their purpose to the local authorities. Dojun answered calmly. Chairman Na Tae-won will handle that. That only confused Park even more. What kind of construction project required the chairman of the Hero Association to personally intervene? Not long afterward, Dojin entered another rift zone. Meanwhile, Hero Association Chairman Na Tae-wong met with a director to discuss Dojin's unusual request. After hearing the details, the director froze. Taming monsters? Is something like that even possible? Na Tae-wang burst into laughter. I was just as surprised when I first heard it. But think about it. Wouldn't this be completely unprecedented? Actually, taming monsters. Since Du Jin appeared completely serious, the director eventually approved the request. Na Tae-wong then smiled. Director, do you know what's even more unbelievable? The first monster he plans to tame is Caesarion. At that very moment, Dojin stood before the roaring Caesarion and casually planted his sword in the ground. Let's get you some exercise today. The next second, Caesarion's enormous tail came sweeping toward him. Dugan exploded into motion and easily avoided the devastating strike. Even Caesarion's powerful energy attacks could not touch him. That only made the monster even more furious. And just like that, a long battle of attrition began. 1 hour later, Caesarion, a monster powerful enough to tear S-rank heroes apart, was sprawled across the ground. By then, it was completely exhausted and gasping for breath. Dojun crouched beside it and gently patted its head. Get some rest. I'll come visit again. He then walked away while casually humming to himself. All that remained was the battered and exhausted Caesarion, lying helplessly on the ground. In Dojun's mind, the basic requirements for a truly safe home were simple: strong walls and powerful guards capable of protecting everything inside them. That was why he planned to bring Caesarion to the property once construction was nearly complete. Before that, however, he still needed to create a device capable of suppressing outside impacts. And to build it, he needed mana crystal powder when a massive axe came sweeping toward him. Dojin quickly dodged aside. He used the momentum to leap behind the monster. A small black subspace portal instantly opened beside him. Dojin reached inside and pulled out the sword Choi Cho Guan had forged for him. The moment his hand brushed across the blade, he activated Kaleidoscope Sword Art. Third form, Cataclysm. The instant Dojin opened his eyes, countless crimson crescent blades surged toward the one-eyed orc. As they flew, the crescents twisted into spirals with terrifying piercing power. The one-eyed orc stared at them in horror, but the spiraling flames showed no sign of stopping. In the next instant, they tore straight through its massive body. As the monster slowly collapsed, Dojun landed gently on the ground. He reached into the creature's body and pulled out a mana crystal. Then he tightened his fingers and crushed the entire crystal into powder. He poured the powder into a glass container he had prepared. Dojun suddenly realized something. If rifts were created by outside forces impacting the world, perhaps mana crystals could also be used to suppress their formation. If the idea actually worked, that would be the best possible outcome. While Dojun continued dividing his time between clearing rifts and visiting grandma at the hospital, explosive news suddenly spread across South Korea. S-rank hero So Do-jun was the grandson of T-Group chairman So Grim-chul. After the news became public, Grim-chul actually looked pleased. He assumed Do-jun must be panicking. He already called a press conference? It doesn't matter what he says now. Once the story spreads, everyone will see him as my grandson. The public quickly began connecting the dots. No wonder So Do-jun had become an S-rank hero at such a young age. Had T-Group been pouring resources into him all along, to them, he suddenly looked like another privileged heir, born with a silver spoon. But if that were true, why was Do-jun holding a press conference? Was he trying to distance himself from T-Group? Faced with the growing rumors, Do-jun immediately held a press conference. The moment he appeared, reporters demanded to know what he intended to reveal. After a brief silence, Do-jun calmly stated the truth. He explained that he had been born out of wedlock and abandoned by his family while still young. The revelation stunned everyone in the room. Do-jun then revealed everything that had happened to the original CEO Do-jun throughout his life. He never went out of his way to insist that every word was true. But the calm and detailed way he told the story gradually shook even those who had doubted him. Before long, former classmates began stepping forward to confirm his past. Some reporters even tracked down the stores where Do-jun had once worked part-time. As more evidence surfaced, the public began sympathizing with him and finally understood what kind of person he truly was. As a result, T-Group's stock, which had been rising before the press conference, suddenly plunged by 30%. The disaster gave Chairman So Grim-chul an enormous headache. Meanwhile, Do-jun continued moving between rift hunts and visits to grandma. The promise he had made to the original So Do-jun was finally close to being fulfilled. And once Do-jun made a promise, he intended to keep it. He would build Eun-young and grandma the safest home in the world. T-Group had gone quiet after its recent setback, but Kang Young-pyo was still hiding somewhere in the shadows. Do-jun was not worried. Sooner or later, Young-pyo would walk straight into the trap waiting for him. Once the house was complete, it would be able to defend itself even if a rift appeared nearby. Until then, Do-jun wanted to prevent any new rift from forming around the property. Park Samik soon reported, "As you requested, we prioritized the outer wall. It's finished, and the main house is almost complete too." Do-jun immediately asked, "How much longer?" "I want to move in as soon as possible." Park assured him, 10 days at most. Everything will be finished. Do-jun then gave him one more order. "Starting tonight, don't let anyone enter the property." Late that night, Do-jun walked alone across the more than 10,000 square meters of land he had purchased. Tonight, he planned to embed all the mana crystals he had collected throughout the property. Do-jun lightly touched his chest, and a black subspace portal opened before him. He pulled out 5 top-tier mana crystals of different colors and pressed one hand against the ground. Under his control, the 5 crystals flew toward predetermined positions across the property. The next moment, an enormous magic array began forming at the center of the walled estate. Do-jun carefully inspected the core device created from the 5 top-tier mana crystals. He then pulled out a jar filled with powder made from other mana crystals and scattered it into the center of the array, guided by his mana. The powder rapidly spread until it covered the entire property. With everything finally prepared, Do-jun was ready to bring home his last guardian. Meanwhile, inside an underground parking garage, Hong Hee-ju screamed furiously. "Call Young-pyo, you useless piece of trash. Instead of wasting time threatening me, figure out how to kill So Do-jun. If you're so capable, bring me that bastard's head right now." Seeing her furious expression, Young-pyo immediately realized that Hee-ju had been cast out by both her own family and her husband's family and was simply taking her anger out on him. He sneered, "You think I wanted things to turn out like this? I'm already forcing myself not to kill everyone who put me in this situation, so I can focus entirely on So Do-jun." Hee-ju shot back. "Then why haven't you done anything? Are you afraid of him?" Young-pyo exploded. "Shut your damn mouth and stay out of the way. Do you think a fight between S-rank heroes is some children's game? I originally planned to grab the old woman or the little girl and use them against him, but he was already prepared. He barely lets his family out of protection. Listen carefully. You and I are already too deeply involved with So Do-jun to turn back now. I've made up my mind. If destroying his entire family is what it takes, then so be it. And I already told you, no one I truly decide to kill survives. The moment So Do-jun gives me even the slightest opening, I'll go straight for his family. So whether you pressure me or not, I'll make him suffer until he dies no matter what it costs. At that moment, Dojun arrived before a massive grand hall. The hall stood deep inside a terrifying ancient castle. Nothing lived there except Death Knights. They had no true leader, and because they possessed no physical bodies, they felt no pain no matter how badly they were damaged. Unless a challenger precisely destroyed the soul core, binding them to this world, the battle would continue endlessly. Even worse, every Death Knight retained the swordsmanship it had mastered while still human, giving each one its own unique fighting style. Dojun looked at them calmly. If you were once knights, fighting you barehanded would be disrespectful. He took several steps back. The next instant, his sword flashed and severed one Death Knight's head. The remaining two immediately charged toward him. Dojun had always enjoyed pure swordsmanship duels. In his previous life, he had practically lived with a sword in his hand from the moment he learned to walk. And with the kaleidoscope sword art, he had little need for any other fighting style, so he decided to clear the entire castle using nothing but his sword. And the familiar feeling brought him genuine enjoyment. Before long, only one ordinary Death Knight remained. Dojun casually swung his blade and sliced it cleanly in half. He had expected at least one of them to be different. Instead, their performance left him somewhat disappointed. Just then, a very different figure slowly approached. Dojun smiled. Speak of the devil. An elite already? Before he could even finish, the figure thrust its sword directly toward him, just as Dojun expected. This Death Knight was completely different from the others. Its blade was fast and razor-sharp, making Dojun smile. Not bad. This is exactly the kind of opponent I enjoy fighting. After exchanging blows for a while, Dojun even praised it. That last strike was pretty good. The moment he finished speaking, he suddenly lowered his body and unleashed a lightning-fast slash. In an instant, the Death Knight dropped to one knee. Dojun rested his sword against its shoulder and ordered, "From now on, you'll serve as my guard." The once powerful Death Knight finally lowered its head and accepted Dojun as its master. Over the next 2 days, Dojun subdued a total of 5 elite Death Knights. He then slowly spread his fingers. 4 spatial vortices appeared before him. With a slight lift of his hand, the Death Knights beside him were pulled into his subspace. Dojun smiled with satisfaction. The Guardian Knights are ready. Now I just need a watchdog. So he returned to Kazarian's nest. The moment Kazarian's cross-shaped pupils saw Dojun, the massive creature released a deafening roar. You again, human, get out of my nest immediately. Dojun's eyes turned cold. I'm not here to play today. You're going to quietly come with me. Kazarian found the demand absurd. How dare a human no different from an insect speak to it like that? But the next instant, overwhelming pressure erupted from Dojun's body. Kazarian froze completely. It could sense that Dojun now possessed a power completely different from before, leaving it no choice but to submit. Before long, Kazarian carried Dojun high into the sky. Dojun ordered it to fly out of the rift. Although Kazarian hesitated, the crushing pressure forced it to swallow its pride and race toward the exit. Meanwhile, pedestrians crossing a street in the city suddenly found themselves covered by an enormous shadow. When they looked up, they saw a gigantic creature flying overhead. It was Kazarian. Riding on its back, Dojun casually warned, "Be careful while flying. Don't crash into any buildings." Kazarian was completely speechless. Once the king of monsters inside a rift, it now had to carefully avoid structures built by the very insects it looked down on. Dojun noticed Kazarian's resentful expression and warned coldly, "Lower your head. Are you trying to rebel?" Finally, unable to endure the humiliation any longer, Kazarian raised its head and unleashed another deafening roar. The terrifying sound wave swept across the city, causing pedestrians below to clutch their heads in pain. Seeing the helpless humans beneath it filled Kazarian with a sudden sense of superiority. But less than 3 seconds later, Fujin kicked it hard in the head, "Stopped scaring civilians, just leave quietly." Afterward, the two traveled all the way to the Mariana Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Rift zones were essentially spatial cracks capable of forming almost anywhere. When one appeared on an uninhabited island, the entire area could eventually become a monster nest. Exactly like the island before Dojun now, Dojun swept his gaze across the monsters covering the island. Then he looked at Kazarian beside him. "Go ahead. Have some fun." A group of orcs immediately charged toward them. Kazarian casually swung one claw and pierced straight through their bodies. Monsters terrifying enough to threaten ordinary heroes were nothing more than insects before Kazarian. Meanwhile, Dojin casually followed behind and collected the magic stones scattered across the ground. He even called out to Kazarian while it slaughtered the monsters. I'll bring you out for walks regularly from now on, but you'll have to earn your own food sometime later. Dojin's new home was finally completed. The residence had 1 underground floor and 3 above ground, all equipped with state-of-the-art systems and security technology. Grandma, who had only recently recovered and left the hospital, was completely stunned. Calling the place a palace would not have been an exaggeration. However, what confused Grandma and Bin-yun the most was the strange area beside the house. Why were monsters being kept there? Dojin casually explained. Just think of it like keeping chickens in a countryside yard. The moment Yoon-hyun heard that, she jumped out of Do-hyun's arms and excitedly ran off to explore the house. Dojin smiled and warned her, be careful. Go look around with Grandma. Before long, only Do-jun and Ju-yun remained near the entrance. Ju-yun suddenly stopped him. Mr. Do-jun, I've been sensing something ominous underground ever since I arrived. Besides Kazarian, are you keeping something else here? Do-jun was slightly surprised. Ju-yun's perception had improved considerably in only a few days, enough for her to sense the death knights below. He calmly reassured her, don't worry. They're just guards for the property. Then Do-jun suddenly remembered something else. And thank you for taking care of Grandma and Union while I was away. Let's have dinner together this weekend. Just the 2 of us. Ju-yun reminded him. Mr. So-dojin, you didn't forget, did you? We already promised Union we'd take her to the amusement park this weekend. She's been looking forward to it for a long time. Ju-yun immediately felt a little embarrassed. He had been so focused on clearing rifts that he had nearly forgotten. Then we'll take Eun-young to the amusement park. Ju-young turned toward him and quietly added, maybe you could bring me along too. The weekend soon arrived. Do-jun and Ju-yun entered the amusement park together with Eun-young. Their appearance quickly attracted attention. Isn't that S-rank hero So-do-jin? And the woman beside him is Yoon Ju-yun. Right? That little girl is his younger sister from the news, isn't she? So are those 2 on a date? Neither Do-jun nor Ju-yun paid much attention to the whispers around them. They simply spent the day accompanying Eun-young through one attraction after another. By the afternoon, Eun-young was completely exhausted and had already fallen asleep. Do-jun looked toward Ju-yun, making her slightly uncomfortable. Why are you staring at me like that? In truth, Do-jun was remembering what Eun-young had told him before. Ju-yun had cooked plenty of delicious food for them and had even taken Eun-young and Grandma to a beautiful cafe. Remembering all of that, Do-jun sincerely thanked her. Hearing Do-jun suddenly thank her, Ju-yun looked completely confused. But once she realized what she was thanking her for, her face immediately turned red. Afterward, Ju-yun drove Do-jun and Eun-young back home. But while they were still on the road, Do-jun suddenly sensed something unusual. He immediately told Ju-yun, someone with a familiar killing intent just entered my property. I need to get there first. Take care of Eun-young. The moment Ju-yun agreed, Do-jun leaped straight out of the car. When he reached home, he found exactly who he expected, Kong Young-pyo. Young-pyo was desperately attacking while shouting, what the hell are these damn tin cans? But the next second, an enormous claw suddenly swept toward him. The owner of that claw was Kazarian. Young-pyo became even more confused. He could not understand why a monster like Kazarian was here. Everything had happened exactly as Dojin expected. The coward had waited until both Dojin and Juyeon were gone before sneaking onto the property to target his family. Dojin casually waved one hand and ordered the surrounding Death Knights to stand down. Young-pyo, who had been trapped in the middle of them, froze in confusion. Why the hell are these things backing off? Then Do-jun's voice came from behind him. You came all this way. It would be embarrassing if a watchdog scared you away. So I told them to leave. Young-pyo immediately turned toward the voice and saw Do-jun approaching, his face twisted with uncontrollable rage. But in the next instant, Do-jun's fist slammed straight into his face. Do-jun mocked him. What happened? You couldn't even dodge a little punch like that? Or should I go easier on you? Only then did Young-pyo truly understand. They were both S-rank heroes, yet the difference between them was overwhelming. Do-jun's fist came flying toward him again. Young-pyo desperately dodged. He barely avoided the direct hit, but half of his ear was still torn apart by the force. Realizing he had no chance in a direct fight, Young-pyo quickly pulled out a bottle of red liquid. Do-jin looked at it and casually asked, what? Getting thirsty? Young-pyo only gave him a sinister grin. The next moment, His normal left arm suddenly expanded into a massive, grotesque limb. Dujun immediately recognized it as the divine water of Okeanos, an item that temporarily granted the power of the Titan's left arm. Judging by the effect, it was clearly disposable. Did you buy that on the black market? Your financial situation must be getting pretty desperate. The mockery instantly enraged young Pyo. He swung his monstrous arm and smashed his fist into the ground while roaring. Instead of mocking me, you should worry about protecting your grandma. His attack had never been aimed at Dojin. Young Kyo intended to create an earthquake powerful enough to collapse the house in the distance. But the next moment, Dojin suddenly appeared beside him. That won't work. The ground beneath this entire property is filled with mana crystal powder. It can absorb the impact you just created. Dujun stared coldly at him. You must be feeling pretty hopeless now. From this moment on, your body will pay the price for ever thinking about hurting my family. With a violent crash, Dojin grabbed young Pyo and slammed his head straight into the ground even after young Pyo lost consciousness. Dojin did not stop. He raised his leg and brought it down toward young Pyo's head again. But just then, Dojin spotted Eunhyun nearby and finally stopped. Juyeon had arrived with Eunhyun and the others, and their appearance was the only reason Kong Young Pyo managed to survive. That night, Dojin once again met the original So Dojin in his dreams. The original Dojun smiled happily at him. Thanks to you. Every wish I had has come true. I don't have any regrets left. Thank you. Everything Dojun had done had already gone far beyond anything he expected, leaving him unsure how he could ever repay such a debt. Dojun simply answered, don't worry about it. This was something I should have done anyway. After all, I'm So Dojun now. So you don't mean to worry about anything anymore.